Evening, and I believe Councillor Pohl has to leave for a short period of time. We will stand for the prayer and the national anthem, please. Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur des principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendment. We have one from Councillor Saucier under 17A for emergency response plan. Okay. Anything else to add from other members? No? Move on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as modified. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Pohl, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. I see none. Oh, Councillor Saucier?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the sewer and water issues, I've checked legally, and I'm not in conflict, but it does affect me personally, so I want to make sure I state that each time.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's in regards to the declaration you had made a few months ago. So you're just clarifying that point. Thank you so much. Item 7, adoption of minutes, regular council minutes, October 15th, 2018. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Saucier, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. Questions, comments? Councillor Saucier. 7, yeah, October 15th, 2018. Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 8, presentations, we have none. Item 9, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent item. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. A, the minutes of the Limoges Citizens Committee from September 4th, 2018. B, the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Advisory Committee of May 16th, 2018. And item C, minutes in the Environmental Advisory Committee of June 6th, 2018. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Pohl, seconded Councillor Saucier. Question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the Limoges minutes, I was just wondering why was the trail improvements not approved? Do we know why? For Nokomis Park? Was in the minutes? No idea?
No.
I was just surprised that it wasn't approved. Yeah. Is there some way I can find out, or
Monsieur Leduc?
maybe peut-être Monsieur André Brisson?
So, Madam Conseil, we can certainly follow up with South Nation to see what's their version of their
Yeah.
decline of the request. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
too sure
was just
exactly what it was. I
curious.
know at one point it was supposed to be for dog trail in the park itself. I'm not too sure if that's the issue or not.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
Thank you.
I'll follow up and I'll email you.
Okay, merci.
Merci, Monsieur Leduc. Nothing else? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 11, reports from departments and council committees. Item A, Local Flavors Rendezvous, Report EcoDev 05-2018. That council receives Report EcoDev 05-2018 for the information regarding the Local Flavors Rendezvous event. Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay. C'est à vous.
Oui, bonsoir, membre du conseil. Donc, comme à tous les années, on fait un rapport qui résume l'événement, donc de ce qui s'est passé le 13 octobre dernier. Donc, on a été à la 3e édition du Rendez-vous des saveurs locales, qui a été encore une fois un très grand succès. Il y a eu 22 kiosques qui étaient présents, qui servaient de la nourriture, du vin et de la bière. During the evening, about 450 people came for the tasting, gathering, and discovering of local businesses from the region. Évidemment, cet événement-là ne pourrait pas avoir lieu sans nos commanditaires. Donc, j'aimerais mention those sponsors that were helping us during the event and before the event to make this available to the public. So, our official sponsor was Caisse Populaire Nouvel Horizon. On avait des sponsors, des commanditaires corporatifs, donc Bertrand Plumbing and Heating, le commanditaire platine, Frigid Rental. On avait des commanditaires or, donc les Russell Lions Club, Saka Home, Robert Excavation, Mélanie Construction, Lily Party Rental. Des commanditaires de la catégorie argent, on avait Oligo Property, Oligo Group, Campbell Sabourin, Kibi Media, Lexin Ménard Photographie. Les commanditaires bronze, on avait 417 Busline, Cooperative Embrun Hydro, Luc Lavoie Design Drafting. Donc, je voudrais prendre l'opportunité de remercier nos commanditaires. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the department head that helped us to make this event possible. Céline Guittard and Millie Bourdeau, the employees of the township that help us. Monsieur Leduc also with the collaboration of all the other department heads. Also, I would like to take the opportunity to féliciter, mon Dieu, j'avais de la misère avec ça, Vanessa Carrière, qui a été une grande partie de l'événement. Donc, Vanessa est avec nous ce soir pour remettre le chèque à l'organisation. Donc, comme à tous les années, vous savez qu'on choisit une organisation à but non lucratif qui reçoit les fonds qui ont été amassés durant l'événement. Cette année, the group was selected by a committee that there was, and it was nominated by the resident of the Township of Russell for meeting the criteria. So the group that was selected this year was Les Amis pour la Vie. For the Friends of Life, I would like to invite at the front to receive the official check and to know the amount that was collected throughout the event, so nobody knows exactly how much we gathered for this event. So I would like to invite maybe at the front here to take pictures and receive the check. Marie-Claire Ivensky, Ginette Rivet, Diane Bourdeau, and Nicole Gosselin-Séguin from Des Amis pour la Vie.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup. I'll invite members of council as well to come for the check
Yeah.
presentation.
So we're proud to announce that the total amount that was gathered for this event is $7,874,000. J'aimerais aussi prendre l'opportunité d'inviter à l'avant notre sponsor officiel, donc la Caisse populaire Nouvel Horizon, qui a aussi contribué à l'événement, qui nous a aidés durant l'événement. qui aimerait aussi donner une somme d'argent à les Amis pour la vie. Donc, j'aimerais inviter de la Caisse populaire M. Paul Doré, André Carrière et Ginette Lalonde. Donc, la Caisse populaire aimerait remettre un montant de 2 000 $ pour un cumulatif cette année de 9 874 $. Merci beaucoup.
I don't think the case will check, will actually take the other one. I don't think the case will take the big one. See if that works.
Okay, so how do I make this go higher?
Félicitations encore à tout le monde, puis Madame Tremblay, puis ton équipe. C'est une belle réussite, la 3e année en ligne, puis chaque année, c'est une belle levée de fonds pour nos organismes locaux. Alors, je sais qu'il y a bien de l'ouvrage qui est investi là-dedans, puis je vous félicite pour bien réussir.
Merci beaucoup.
Next item on the agenda, Bray Construction, reimbursement and cash in lieu of parkland fee, report EcoDev 06-2018. The council receives report EcoDev 06-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and the members of council authorize the following recommendation. That the Township of Russell reimburse Bray Construction a portion of the cash in lieu of parkland fee for a total amount of $684. Questions, comments, members of council? No? Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay, Madame Lagraffière, I'll ask to have this item separate when the vote comes. Reading through the report, I know there was a lot of information here. Thank you very much. I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Bray in regards to this fee. He's looking for a full reimbursement. There was, council did put a premium on the land of $10,000 an acre. He's actually built a year sooner than planned, and we'll make up that tax difference in the year earlier as well. Councillor Lorrain?
Do we have an idea why they paid the extra $10,000 an acre?
Yeah, Madame Tremblay, correct me if I'm wrong in the report. That was back then. It was because they weren't meeting the 2-year requirement. They had asked for an extension originally of 5 years. Is that correct? Or 5 years for the 2 phases, and they're completing within 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the $10,000 was because they didn't meet the square footage of the 10% and because of the timing. So usually it's a 2-year time frame, and they were asking for more than 2 years for both phases.
Yeah. Have we put that charge on anybody else in the park? I'm trying to remember if anybody else paid a premium as such, and I don't remember.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we've never, since I'm in that position, I've never charged a premium. However, the way we work now is that we repurchase that property if we don't meet the 2-year
Yeah,
deadline. So nobody else has the opportunity to take more than 2 years.
Right.
So has anybody else been exempted from the 2% fee or the cash in lieu fee before?
This is still fairly new, 2017, but Madame Tremblay?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, since the 2017, everybody paid this is a township fee, so everybody paid that 2%.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Paul?
Yeah, just one comment. You have only 2 years to build. By the time you get through site plan design work and construction and all the rest of it, is 2 years enough time that maybe we should be giving 3 years? I guess would be the question, because he was built in 3 years, I understand?
No, 4.
Well,
and
phase
a bit.
2, he had 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and he had up till 5 years for phase 2 to be completed. He's
Right.
actually completed it in 4 years, so we're actually getting taxation off his phase 2 building a year ahead of schedule because he built faster. But he had paid a premium to have that extension of up to 5 years for the two projects, if you will.
And I'm sure there's others would have probably went for that same thing had they been given the opportunity to extend as well. So I'm thinking, you know what I mean? Like, we got to play by the rules for everybody. And if that's the case, then they asked for a special request. They got the special request. They paid extra for it. There's another fee on top of that. They should be paying the same fee as everybody else. So I respectfully disagree with with the way you've stated it, and I think that they should be paid the amount that they. And I think we are giving them a break too, because the fee that they're paying is only on the $25,000 purchase price and not the $35,000. So this is the reimbursement of that fee, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So clarification, Madame Tremblay. When the proponent bought the piece of land, did we have this fee in place?
So we had a fee that was equivalent to that, but it wasn't clear of how we were charging that fee. So the 2017 bylaw just reinforced the fact that we were charging that 2% on the price of the value of the land and how the value of that land was established. So if we look through the books, we'll see that that 2% and that 5% was charged before that bylaw. However, the 2% was not reinforced in the sense that we didn't know how to evaluate the value of that property. So that's what the 2017 bylaw did, is basically that we're using the value of the property at the, usually what the property needs to do is make an evaluator evaluate that property and give us the value. But because it's in the 417 Industrial Park, we usually use the bylaw that we are selling it at $25,000, so we don't ask an appraisal of the property. This is something that will come back in front of council to exempt properties from the 417 Industrial Park to use the property value that we're selling it at and not the appraisal value. But just to go over, we took that into consideration in a sense that the second phase was done on a 3.42 acre property, and we didn't charge that 2% on the overall 5-acre property. So that was also a way of recognizing that they paid a premium as well. So the recommendation, just to make sure that it's members of council understand, is that the recommendation that we're making is to charge that 2% on the $25,000 an acre, not on the $35,000 an acre as previously charged to the applicant. This is a fee that is applicable at the time of the building permit is issued and not at the time of the negotiation. And I do understand that they paid a premium, but for us, it's at the time of the building permit that is issued.
So when I guess my question would be, when the negotiations were going on, were they informed that there would be an additional 2% fee to be charged?
So through, again, to answer your question, when the negotiation of the property being sold to them,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I was not in that position back then, so.
Right, my apologies. But I guess my question would be, if somebody comes into the township now
Yeah.
and wants to buy a parcel of land from us and build on it,
Yeah.
do we say, this is the price of the land, plus you will have to pay this fee, and this fee, and this fee when you get your building permit? Is
So
that the process now?
I'm proud to say that, yes, we do.
Good.
So in the pre-consultation meeting, what we do now is that we inform the applicant of what the process would be, so price of the site plan, price of the building permit, and all the other fees that would come into play, as we've done with Mr. Bray when he came for the second phase. So when the second phase came up, they came at the pre-consultation meeting, and they were informed of all of the fees that would be applicable for that building.
Right. But they were not necessarily informed when they bought the property originally that there would be that fee at that point in time.
To be fair, I don't think that the $2,300 would have pushed them back to not buy the property.
No, I totally agree. But, sometimes it's more the principle than the actual dollar value, but, okay. Monsieur Leduc?
So, Madame du Conseil, Mr. Paul asked a question about a 2-year frame. You have to understand it's, for us, it's a matter of 2 years to come in and get your building permit, not having the building built. So it does give you a third or kind of a third year before you're done. So for
Right.
us, as long as you come in within the first 2 years,
Right.
we're okay. And that's why the properties are valued low, because we had direction from council to get sales done quickly. so buildings will be built quickly, and we get revenue of taxation quickly. That was the intent when we were giving direction from council.
Okay. No question, commentaire? I think if I remember the letter properly, it clearly states that we can't speak to the person who did the sales before, but the proponent or the landowner in this case says he wasn't aware of the fee when it started, when he bought the land and agreed to a $10,000 premium at that point in time. Like I say, for the second phase, he's aware because from day one you told him, but not necessarily from when when he bought that land. I think the comment that I've heard from Mr. Bray is probably, you know, changing the goalposts in the middle of the game. And that's what his point of view is. Madame Tremblay?
And I completely agree with the statement that you made. However, at the same time, they were not aware of the building permit fee when they purchased the property, which they paid the building permit fee. So to be fair across the board, all of the other owner of the Township of Russell in the 417, 6 of them, 8 of them, I've made the count, and they all paid that 2%. So we need to also take that into consideration.
Correct. Now, but as you stated, you have been informing those 6 or 8 people since the beginning that you've been dealing with them, that these fees will be in place. This is a case where we have somebody in essentially that's sort of in the middle, right? He purchased when we had another director here, built, was not necessarily informed of that fee at the beginning. Now he is. So, but that's fine. I mean, that's why we're here having the discussion. Madame Tremblay?
But just to clear again, the point, Fortran and Santa Guida are 2 that I didn't negotiate, they paid the fee as well. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions or comments? No? Move on to the next item. Item C, removal of part lot control, report PD 67-2018, properties owned by Melanie Construction, Inc. and located at 438-440, 426-428, 422-424, and 416-418 Twilight Avenue in Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Saucier.
Okay, so this is dividing one lot into 2, and then there's, again, the 1.2 meters on the interior? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Anything to add, Madame Tremblay? No? Move on to item D. Water and sewer unit allocation in the Village of Russell, report PD 69-2018, property owned by Melanie Construction, Inc. and located at 398 Twilight Avenue in Russell. The council receives report PD 69-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and approves the allocation of the requested 0.65 water and sewer unit for the property legally described as Lot 98 on Plan 50M-332 located at 398 Twilight Avenue in Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Pohl.
Yeah, I was just concerned over the parking that's gonna happen out of all the, if many people do this in that subdivision, because it's a semi-detached already, and now you're adding an apartment in the basement. It's gonna be a little tight on those streets for winter parking and other things.
Madame,
It's
Monsieur
not a
Le,
water and sewer issue, but it relates
Yeah.
kind of to allocations like this.
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay, I believe now that the new rules of the province have indicated that people have
Yeah.
the option to do that. But is that something we consider now when looking at these type of subdivisions?
yeah, through Mr. Mayor, again, when the approval of the site plan, before we issue the building permit, we make sure that the parking requirements are meeting the zoning bylaw as well for the main unit as the apartment. So the apartment are shown on the building construction plan, so we could verify that there's enough space for making sure that they meets the requirement of the zoning.
Parfait. Councillor Lorrain?
I think the main thing here is that they're actually telling us they're putting in the accessory apartment rather than just going ahead and doing it after the fact and not paying for certain fees and asking for the extra water. So I think they're going about it the right way at this point in time.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Move on. Item E, removal of part lot control, report PD 70-2018, owned by 2035482 Ontario Inc., Saka Homes, and known as 263-265 Belfort Street in Embrun. The council receives reports PD 70-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and adopts a bylaw to approve the proposed application for the removal of part lot control submitted by 2035482 Ontario Inc., care of Mathieu Quesnel for the parcel of land described as Lot 73 on Plan 50M-313, being Parts 1 and 2 on Plan 50R-10752, and known as 263-265 Belfort Street in the Village of Embrun. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No? Madame Tremblay?
I just want to mention that in the report, and I didn't check the first part like control, and I just want to, maybe we could talk about it after, but in this instance for the part like control, it's 1.37 and 1.38. So the minimum is 1.2, but they went above the minimum requirement.
They went above it.
Yeah.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup. Item F, sewer allocation in Emblem, report PD 71-2018, property owned by Emblem Welding and Sandblasting, care of Gaston Seguin and located at 1100 Saint-Andre Road in Emblem. The council receives report PD 71-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and the council allocates a requested one municipal sewer unit for the property legally described as being as Part Lot 9, Concession 5 being Part 2 on Plan 50R-9918, located at 1100 Saint-Andre Road in Emblem. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No, we'll move on. Item G, extension of draft plan of subdivision approval, report PD 72-2018, EMB development known as Menard West on the property legally described as part of Lot 9, Concession 6 in Emblem. The council receives report PD 72-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and approves that the draft plan of subdivisions approval for Menard West subdivision, file number 080-S-08-010, submitted by EMB Development, Inc., be extended for 2 years as requested by the applicant. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Associate.
Yeah, I was just curious, why have we been extending since 2009? Like, what, is there a problem, or?
I
And now
believe,
they're asking for another 2 years?
I believe there was allocation or infrastructure issues, but Monsieur Leduc, Madame Tremblay.
Yeah, so initially, when the first draft plan was approved, we didn't have the allocation, so it was longer for them to be able to get to the subdivision plan. But just to reassure members of council, we did sign phase 1, so this is under construction, so I know that they have they're waiting for the second agreement to be able to proceed with phase 2, so that's gonna be a short period of time. It was just basically to cover if phase 2 would extend longer than what's permitted, because the initial draft was ending shortly.
Okay,
So-
merci.
Merci beaucoup. Other questions or comments? Move on to item H, removal of part lot control, report PD 73-2018. Property is owned by Tartan Homes Corporation and known as 146, 148, and 150, 152 Boxstar Crescent in Russell. The council receives report PD 73-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and that council approves the proposed bylaw regarding the application for removal of part lot control submitted by Tartan Homes Corporation for the parcel of land described as Lot 12 on Plan 50M-317, being Parts 1, 2, and 3 on Plan 50R-10763, and known as 146-148 Boxcar Crescent in the village of Russell, and Lot 13 on Plan 50M-317, being Parts 1, 2, 3, 4 on Plan 50R-10764, and known as 150, 152 Boxcar Crescent in the village of Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Associate.
So I just want to make sure if I got this one correct. So it's semi-detached into 2 lots, and then the interior side yard is going to be 0.9 meters. So I'm just, like, what is our minimum?
It's 1.2.
1.2?
Yeah, so it's the final interior side yard would be 1.24 to 1.27 meter.
Okay, but there was in the report something interior 0.9.
Yeah, so the zoning of that property was changed back then. It was R225, and the zone R225, the exception would allow it to be 0.9 of a meter as an interior side, but they have 1.24 and 1.27.
So they're actually meeting today's standards as opposed to what it was.
As opposed to the zoning amendment that was done back then. So council approved a zoning back then with the exception of allowing an interior side yard of 0.9 meter.
I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm just concerned how close they're getting, and also for fire and safety and things like that, like, they're just gonna be strung along, you know?
Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, it does, if I read that correctly, though, what you just said, though, they've actually gone higher. They're not getting smaller, they're getting wider.
Yeah.
From 0.95 to 1.2, and they're actually above the 1.2. So we're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger
In this case.
in this
In
case.
this case, yeah.
Okay. Autres questions, commentaires? We'll move on. Item I, zoning bylaw amendment report PD 75 2018, property owned as EMB Development Inc. and known as properties along St. Pierre Road in Embrun. The council receives report PD 75 2018 dated November 5th, not 58, 5th, 2018, and approves the zoning amendment application submitted by EMB Development Inc., care of Ronald Terrio, to remove the holding symbol H as follows. 1, from residential 2 withholding R2H to residential 2 R2. And that's it. Questions, comments, members of council? Oh, I thought there was going to be a 2. Anything to add from the administration? No? We'll move on to, that was item I. Item J, new tile drainage loan, report FS 38 2018. That council receives report FS 38 2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and adopt the tile drainage bylaw as presented. Questions, comments, members of council? This is pretty straightforward stuff. Anything from the administration? No? Move on to item K, calendar budget meetings report FS 39 2018. That council receives report FS 39 2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and adopts the 2019 budget meeting calendar as proposed in Schedule A, and that council adopts the proposed bylaw establishing a new calendar of council meetings held each year for the adoption of yearly budgets. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lorrain.
As we discussed the other day in our meeting, I just wanted to make sure that for the budget sessions for 2019 in February, whether the other council member has been discussed with the new member coming in, so that we can sit here and say yes, but then
Yep.
somebody else may sit there and go, well, it doesn't work for me. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure there's been discussions.
Yeah, I reached out to Mr. Tarnowski to make sure he was okay with those dates, and he did confirm that, yeah, he was fine with those 2 dates in February. I will make a request that the public budget session we have for the December 10th, if at all possible, if we can hold it either the week before or the week after. I owed my wife a 20th anniversary trip, and I booked it a little while ago, and it happens to fall in that week. So I don't think she'd be happy that I would cancel out on her. So I know we have a council meeting on the 3rd, so I'm not sure if we can look at either, I checked with the clerk as far as the room availability, if we're open to the 4th or the 5th, the 4th or the 5th, the week before, or perhaps the 18th or the 20th, the week after. I'm not sure if members of council would be open to that possibility, if there's any days that don't work. Yeah, we can check. We'll take a break at one point, and we'll be able to check before we vote on this file. So just throwing that out there. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, my only concern on the budget's working sessions on the 6th and the 7th of February is that's usually the week I go on I have a conference that week. I don't believe I'm there this year, but that's the only thing I haven't been told for sure whether or not I am going, so that would cause me concern to.
Do you have a time frame when you'll find out whether you're going or not?
I should know by the next meeting, by the next council meeting.
Okay. Worst case, we can approve it tonight, and if we need to make an adjustment at the next meeting, we can do so.
My objective is to not be at that conference this year, but just in case.
Just in case. Fair enough. Councillor Poe, you'll run out, and hopefully you'll be back. We might be done by then, but you never know. Perfect. Okay, so I'll ask that item K be separate as well. Madame Camille Laflamme. Monsieur Leduc.
Qu'est-ce qui va être les dates pour la date du public? Là? Vous avez parlé de février, mais on gardait la date du 4-5 ou du 18?
Oui, ben à un point, on va prendre un break, puis quand c'est le temps de voter, on va avoir plus d'informations à ce point-là. Item L, over 25K purchases report 2018 Q3 report FS 40-2018. The council receives report FS 40-2018 dated November 5th, 2018 for information purposes, being the third report for purchases over 25K for 2018, covering the period of January to September. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No. Move on. Item M, Grant Report 2018 Q3 Report FS 41-2018. Council receives Report FS 41-2018 dated November 5th, 2018 for information purposes, being the third report for grant application activities for 2018 covering the period of January to September. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No. Item N, Financial Report 2018 Q3 Report FS 42-2018. The council receives report FS 42-2018 dated November 5th, 2018 for information purposes, being the third financial report for 2018 covering the period of January to September. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Saucier.
Yeah, was happy to see that we got more than we requested on a couple of grants, but can you just explain to me about prisoner transportation? Is that for bylaw?
No, that's special constables hired by
Oh.
the OPP.
Okay.
They do prisoner transport.
Okay, so that's in our budget. And the other question I had on there was for Céline Guittard was when would the museum accessibility work commence?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It will commence next year because, as I mentioned months ago, we wanted to get an opinion from a heritage consultant on the reclining of the building. So the report just came in about a week ago. So I will make probably a report early December to council to see the options that were mentioned in that report. So that's why the accessibility was pushed. I did get a favorable answer from the agency that gave us the grant to push it until next year.
So the spring, or like, do we have a ballpark, or?
Hopefully, yeah.
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 Okay, thank
Monsieur Leduc.
Yes.
So, Madam Conseil, I'd like to go back to Mrs. Saucier's question regarding prisoner transportation. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago, Champlain Township, where the court is in L'Orignal, were assuming all the costs themselves. And they made a request to the province to share or change the formula, and they did go ahead and change the formulas for township, for municipalities to share all the costs. So it wasn't fair for them to pay all the costs, and none of us, we were sharing the revenues, but not that expense. So now they've included that expense in that cost sharing revenues. So that's why it's done this way now.
D'autres questions, commentaires? Move on to the next item. Item O, McDougall Tweed Sanitary Sewer Servicing Bylaw Report FS 43-2018. That council receives report FS 43-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and adopt the proposed amended McDougall Tweed Sanitary Sewer Servicing Bylaw. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Saucier.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could sort of explain the rebate for me.
Yeah, essentially what there was, when they brought in the sanitary sewer in that area, there was so many properties, and now one property
Yeah.
was able to sever a lot.
Yeah.
So in doing so, that person had to pay a fee, so it lowers the cost for everybody.
Oh, okay.
Is that it? Eh? Yeah, okay, just make sure.
Just clarifying.
Okay. Anything else to add from the administration? Item P, Forest Road Water Servicing Bylaw Report FS 44-2018. That council receives report FS 44-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and adopt the proposed servicing bylaw for Forest Road. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? I'll have one question, but Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Maire, cher membre du Conseil. I just wanted to bring a last-minute change we brought to the bylaw to your attention. Marie, if you could put the bylaw and track change on the screen. We just corrected the wording in section 3 and in section 5 regarding the collection of the payments. The way we had drafted it first was that we were going to impose and invoice those fees right away. In reality, in looking back at the file and the correspondence with the owners, they're going to be charged upon connections. So we reworded the wording in the bylaw to reflect that. So basically, they're still going to have some payment options to pay up front or to pay on on a 3-year term, or option 3 is the one we added in section 5, where we say that the choice is to be paid in full upon connection to the actual water system. I just wanted to clarify that.
So, just to clarify, in the meantime, if they're not connecting, then they're not paying any interest on that amount or anything like that? It's when they connect, they'll pay the fee that was established in this bylaw, is that correct?
They'll pay the fee plus an interest that's charged that's calculated over the years that they don't connect, actually. So if you want to go to,
Let's give it a second. We'll have an opportunity for a question period. We're asking questions to clarify.
so basically, and we didn't have a conversation with council about this in details. So the way it's presented here is on 3 options. Option 1, you pay in full as of the end of this month. Option 2, you can choose to pay over 3 years. And option 3 would be, and we're following the same rates that would have to be used on 3 years. Basically is that nothing is imposed and nothing is charged right away. If at some point the owner decides to get onto the system, then there would be the same fee charge that's in the schedule plus the 3.54 interest rate that's being charged to those who choose the 3 years.
Okay, now just to clarify, in the letter that was sent to the residents, there was no mention of having a fee plus the interest down the road. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the letter didn't go into details about how it would be charged. What was said was that once the project was going to be completed, payment options and total costs would be communicated at that point.
Okay. Councilor Ryan, you have a question?
I have a couple questions. The first one is, so in the bylaw that you updated today,
The one being proposed?
the one being proposed, is not the report that I see right here. Right? There's only 2 options in this report.
Yeah, that's why Monsieur Godin started off by saying that the changes, so there is that, the option 3 was added.
Okay, but we're now into this meeting, and this is the first I see of this change. So that now I have to vote on this in half an hour, as adding this extra piece that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So right now, the amount is the 24,000. Is that the per household, or is that the total amount that's
Being divided.
being divided amongst how many houses?
So that would be the total amount. The amount per household, if you go to schedule,
Where's
at the
that?
bottom, it's Schedule A,
I don't have a Schedule A.
at the bottom of the bylaw.
The bylaw itself, not the.
Oh.
Peux-tu juste
So-
amener here it is on the screen.
Prices are varying between 2,900 or 2,600 depending, and for the actual differences in cost, I might let Mr. Bourgon explain why. Just so I don't induce you into errors.
Okay, so there's all the different prices there.
Essentially, my understanding is that's one side of the street's paying a little bit more than the other side of the street because there's
The-
more piping, I guess. Okay.
So are all of these houses connecting to the system? I'm sorry, I'm asking administration right now.
They all have the option to.
They all have the option to. Okay. And do we know how many are?
At this point in time,
I can't answer that, but I don't know if Mr. Bourgon has the
Monsieur Bourgon?
I would need to confirm. I believe at this point in time, only one did connect.
Only one person did connect at this point in time. Monsieur Leduc?
The reason of the change today was to reflect the letter we had sent in May of 2017 to these individuals, the residents, saying they were not forced to connect. The bylaw that you received in your package was forcing everybody to connect. Now, this reflects the letter and the understanding of the residents that they would not be forced to connect. So this bylaw is amended to meet the expectation of the residents that they're not forced to connect. That explains the change.
Okay. Don't we have a bylaw in place for when a pipe does come in front of your house and you do not want to connect? Isn't there something in place where they can ask for a 2-year extension and keep renewing that 2-year extension, but that then they would pay a flat fee for that. I think they pay the 100% of the flat fee. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Monsieur Leduc?
Yes, I believe back in 2010, that bylaw was passed
Okay.
initially, and it was forcing residents everywhere there was a pipe, they were to connect. Down in time, councils I understood that, you know, we were not to force anybody to connect unless they wanted to.
Right.
connect. So the bylaw is still in place there, but I believe we have not went ahead and forced anybody who didn't want to connect to the piping system. So again, this bylaw would have to be brought up to be refreshed to say, as council is still in the same position, it does not want to impose until somebody wants to connect, or do you want to impose? At this point, the bylaw is there, but we have not forced people to connect to it.
Right, but by not forcing somebody to connect, they have the ability to request not to connect by exemption.
Yes.
And has that been discussed with the residents that are affected here?
In this case, they're not, there was a letter by us to them saying they're not forced to connect. Back in May 2017.
Okay.
So we sent a letter that is going against our own bylaw that says that if you do not connect, you need to request an exemption to connect, at which time you will be charged a full flat fee for the water. So we were saying they were exempt from that process. And then this is what we're going with.
Not necessarily exempt, because there's no exemption clause unless you make a request, but certainly since 2010, there's been a few areas where we did not force. And council did give us direction not to enforce that bylaw specifically. So we had taken the direction of not forcing anybody to connect, even though the bylaw was saying whenever a pipe passes in front of your house, you must connect. So we had stepped back from there and not charged, and that's why when that letter was sent, it was with that opportunity for not to connect, even though the bylaw says you may have to connect. But in this case, they were told they don't have to.
So to take Councilor Lorraine's, I guess, one step further, the residents are informed they don't have to connect based on the mindset of the previous council decisions. But as Councilor Lorraine mentioned, that those residents who opted for that option are still paying the flat fee portion. Is that my correct understanding? Now, were these residents informed that if they don't connect, they still have to pay the flat fee portion?
And request an exemption.
At this point, the letter also indicated they were not to be charged the flat fee, and there was no mention of asking to specifically make a request to be exempted. We did not go there.
Okay. Okay, I'll take, there's a lot of questions rotating in my mind, so I'll take one step back. In regards to the people who are paying a flat fee who have not connected, who will decide to connect in the future, do we know if their bill has interest being added to it so that when they do connect, are they going to see a percentage that's interest on that time frame? I'm not sure if I'm explaining exactly. You know, in this scenario, we're saying to residents, you don't have to pay, but we're tacking on 3.54% every year until you do connect. Are we saying, have we done that in the past with other residents who have not connected, who have used the option Councilor Lorraine showed that they're paying a flat fee of $179? Are they going to be paying interest on that fee as well? Monsieur Leduc?
In this particular case, we're talking about fees for laterals. We'd have to verify those people who are in that situation to see if there are any laterals already built up in the system. We'd have to verify that. So I can't respond firmly to your question, Mr. Mayor, unless we would have some research before I can give you a firm answer on that.
Okay.
But there might be issues where there's no laterals and therefore just a connection from the house. And they're not there yet, so that's why there would not be any fees waiting for our interest charge being charged, because there's no expenses by the township to have that lateral post up there. So we'd have to verify that.
Okay. I'll say at this point in time, it's safe to assume to take this one out separately, Madame Camille Laflamme. Councillor Saucier and then Councillor Lorrain.
Well, my concern is that it's just not clear for the residents right now, so I would have a problem voting on this tonight.
Conseiller Larin?
So the 24,903.92 was paid by the
Township.
township, and we paid that out of what? I'm assuming a water reserve?
Yes, the total of the project was paid by the water reserves.
Was paid by a water reserve. And I'm just trying to understand, at the time that the residents were given options to either connect or not connect, there was option 1 and option 2, but option 3 was not part of that process. Is that my understanding? Until today.
So,
I'm just concerned
no.
over if somebody said, okay, well, we're not being forced to connect, we don't have to connect, and we only pay when we connect, but now we're gonna be charged an interest fee over that period of time, whether it's a year, 5 years, or 20 years. That's a lot of interest that could build up, even though it's a small amount per household, relatively speaking. I'm not suggesting that $2,000 to $3,000 is a small amount, but in relative terms, it's a smaller amount, but that number could double and triple in size over the years. So,
Monsieur Godin?
wait, merci. So I just went over the letter real quickly. We didn't go into details in the letter about options and how this would be paid. Basically, what was said in the letter was an estimate of what we thought the cost would be, which at the time in the letter was estimated at $2,500. We spoke on permit fees of $50. The flat fee rate of $344 was mentioned to say that would be charged annually. Upon final installation and inspection, you will be charged for your service flat fee rate of $344 annually, plus the usage fee rate that was mentioned also at 2.54 per cubic meter. We make reference to the user fee bylaw so that they have all that information there as well. And we also mentioned the water meter cost of $307. What we do mention at the end is that financing opportunities will be available and presented to the owners at the end of the project for costs of the lateral service installed by the township from the water main on Forest Road to the property line. So basically, this is that's what was communicated to the property owners at that time. And what we're doing today is coming to council
And presenting those
to
options.
present the options, and then once council decides or either approves the options or decides on something else, we'll be able to go back to once we've adopted a bylaw, we'll be able to go back to the owners and then present the
The
final
three
options that were
options.
adopted by council.
but aren't we doing that backwards? Like, shouldn't we have gone to the residents to show them the options that were available to them and then come to council and have comments from the public, rather than getting council to say, this, yeah, we're okay with this, go ahead and give those 3 options, and then coming back and hearing from the residents that, well, that option was never presented to us before, but you've gone ahead and adopted it. I just find that we're doing it backwards with at least the 3rd option, which was never discussed and wasn't even in our report until tonight. So,
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon, has this process been done differently than any other process we've done in the past, where financing options are presented at the end of the project? For example, La Madeleine, we know is currently going on. Have they been presented final options, or the options are in my mind, I don't think we've changed the process. I think it's always at the end of the process when we have the full costed amounts. That's when the different options are presented to residents. Is that correct, Monsieur Bourgon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, typically we'll present we'll tell the resident there will be options, and that's when we know the final cost of the project. We present that to council, as Mr. Godin mentioned. Then the bylaws passed, and we send the letter to the resident.
Giving them the different options at that
We
point
only
in
know
time.
like roughly there's gonna be options of financing, and depending, like if we take La Madeleine or McDougall Tweed, well, the options were to 5, 10, or 20 years. So depending on the value of the project, but
Yeah.
those options are presented to council then transmit to the resident.
Right, and let's just be clear in that, in those cases, the reason I think 5, 10, or 20 years, it was that the servicing was $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 in those instances. Monsieur Leduc?
I mean, all this money is applied against our borrowing capacity, so therefore, for the administration point of view, if we had no financing, it'd be great for us. But in fact, we're sharing with residents the ability we have to get a better interest rates and to offer financing to them. So we'd be better off to say, you pay your invoices, you get your own bank loan, whatever, at your own different interest rates, and I'm sure they'd be paying more than what we're offering. So that's why we always come to council to say, what are the options, 5, 10, 15 years, what are the rates, so people know exactly what's coming. So there's always an option to pay cash and pay upfront and get your own financing if you have to, if you need financing. But for us, it'd be better not to finance, but if council wants us to go that way, we'll go that way too.
I think the other reason that we don't do that necessarily at the beginning of a project is we can't guarantee those rates at the beginning of a project because we're borrowing from the bank, or just like, we're going to see our lender to see what rate we can have today. If we gave that at the beginning of a process, there is no guarantee at the end of the process after all the work is done if we can honor that rate or not. Councillor Lorrain?
But two things. So the first, to answer that though, we didn't borrow from the bank for this. We borrowed from ourselves. So we borrowed from the current users of the water system in a reserve that we have,
Right, that we make interest on.
that we make interest on. But we borrowed from ourselves. So we didn't go to the bank. So we're not out the money from a loan capacity perspective.
No, we're just out the interest that we're making.
Correct. The other piece that I'm having a hard time is it's it's almost sounding like we've gone ahead and bought a piece of equipment, put it in the ground, and you don't pay a penny. The whole big you don't pay a penny event type of scenario where you don't pay a penny, but as soon as you connect onto it, now you're paying all the interest that's accrued over time. When in fact, it should be when you actually connect to the system, and then you start paying your interest on that. The 3-year plan or whatever, option 2. I think if those were the only 2 options available to us tonight, and that's what we were voting on, I'd have no problem voting on it. I think the residents would understand that. But the fact that there's this third option there that says, and they were told, you don't have to connect today, but understand you're paying now, understand tonight when they come in here, that you're going to be paying interest over that time period not to connect, whatever that time is. I don't find that appropriate. So, I can't vote on that option that allows for accrued interest to be banked year over year over year until the resident gets on the system.
Thank you very much. It's almost like changing the goalposts in the middle of the game. Councillor Saucier?
Can we get a copy of that letter? Please?
Yeah, staff will be able to send that. So this will be voted on separately. I think we'll, when we discuss that further, I have a feeling that it might be just a first reading this evening to be brought back at a later date, but we'll get to that point. Item Q. St. Pierre Road, oh, actually no, I gotta take a step back because I had another wrench to throw in that discussion. We were informed about bylaw 2011-55 1 or 2 meetings ago, which state that when people connect to our water system in the village of Russell or Embrun, there is a connection fee. That stems from the discussion in regards to capital water charges bylaw, conversion bylaw, but we found out that we actually had a fee from 2011-55. That has not been mentioned to the residents either. Is that correct, Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And just to be clear, the way the report I'm reading it, you are not indicating that we should charge that fee. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're not indicating that we should.
Okay, so I think that one thing for council to be clear on this report in that specific section, in the report section, si tu peux juste monter le rapport comme tel, I think it's the last paragraph on the history. Remonte. So an information report will be, Excuse laquelle we do not. So we do not intend to subject the benefiting owners to the capital sewage and water charges bylaw that was proposed to council in June 2018, which makes sense because it's not in effect at this point in time. And this project was initiated in 2017. And where no additional connection charges had been mentioned to these benefiting owners when they were consulted. I would add specifically in the report 2011-55 so that we make it clear for these residents. They weren't mentioned that fee, and that staff is recommending and council understands that we are not imposing this fee on them. Because that fee, top of mind, represents $2,000-$3,000. Okay. Okay, that was a fee that was put in 2011 in regards to the water loop that would put, that would allow for residents in Russell and Marionville to connect to the system. So that's not in place, but the report states that that fee is not being charged. Now, I just want to point out for the for council members and the residents, while this report is stating that you will not be charged that fee, at one point in time, this council will be discussing the capital charges conversion bylaw, and that will be something that might be put in place at some time down the road. So I just want everybody to be aware of that discussion that will be coming as well. So I understand not a lot of you are connecting to the system right now, but depending how council moves ahead in the future, there might be an added charge for people going from a existing system to the municipal system. So I just want everybody to be clear on that. But we haven't got to that point in time yet. Councillor Lorrain?
But we just stated that they're exempt.
From 2011-55, because we can't, unless we change it to they're exempt in perpetuity from any fees that are put in place. Can you do that? Can you state that a bylaw that doesn't exist yet, you will be exempt from? We can do it because 2011-55 exists right now. We can say that we exempt them from the current bylaws in place, but can you exempt in perpetuity somebody from a bylaw that might come from another council down the road? I just want to make sure that the residents understand that this council, on this discussion, 2011-55 is not being forced upon them. And council will make that decision if they so choose. But I think when conversion bylaw discussion comes back, as a council, the council will have to make sure how we impose that going forward. If we're waiving it for all existing residents, if it's moving forward. I just want to make sure everybody's understands what the possibilities out there are.
Well, you've now opened up a Pandora's box because I think there was another item on tonight's agenda for a 0.65 allocation of water. And wouldn't that also qualify under 2011, whatever that bylaw is, that's never being charged?
No, because it's new construction and they paid development charges. That new property is paid development charges, so that bylaw doesn't apply.
And they're paying the development charge on the additional 0.65? Or did they only pay on the original one unit?
Madame Tremblay?
So when you add an apartment, you have DCs that are applicable to your building permit fee. So the 0.65 is because of the building permit. So there's a fee of DC applicable at the time of the building permit. So they're paying DCs for the new unit as well as for the apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 2011-55 is really specifically to existing homeowners that are on private services that are connecting to the water system, not the sewer system. That's why McDougall doesn't apply. And in Embrun, that bylaw doesn't affect Embrun, so that's why they're not paying specifically for water in the village of Russell. So, just throwing it out there, but we'll have further discussions on both files, I'm sure.
So all I'm hearing now is basically we're really not giving them an option to connect or not to connect. We're telling them they need to connect because they could be charged this additional charge in the future if they so choose not to connect.
I'm stating that there is a possibility, depending on how council and the future council puts bylaws in place. I hate to have, a council make a decision. And again, one of the reasons that residents are here, they're saying, and they're not happy with option 3, is they're saying, we didn't know about it. So do we not say anything, put our heads in the sand, and pretend 2011-55 doesn't exist, and pretend that the new proposed bylaw doesn't exist? I think we have to give the residents as much as information as possible so that they're informed as to how they move forward in their decision-making process as well. Councillor Saucier.
I was just wondering if we should move ahead question periods for the residents on this topic.
I think, well, we can if we want. I think the other files are pretty quick, but you want to propose that we move ahead with council question period at this point in time? Do I have a
Yes.
seconder? Councillor Lorraine, so all those in favor? So we suspend the rules of procedure to put question period at this point in time for this subject only. So if you have questions about other files, we'll deal with that at question period at that point in time. But if you have questions on the Forest Road Water Servicing Bylaw Report FS 44 2018, I invite you to come and ask your question. Yeah, just come up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, my name's Mark Perry. I live at 235 Forest Road. I provided Mr. Godin and Mr. Leduc with information with regards to this letter that we had received, and it was an agreement between the municipality and the homeowners on Forest Road.
Yes.
Now, when we went to the original meeting, the very first thing that we were told, the primary purpose of that water line was not to bring water to the residents of Forest Road. I want to make sure that that's clear. That was never the primary purpose. And you can ask Mr. Bourgeon that. The primary purpose was to loop that water system for Old Town West.
As a safety feature if ever
You
there was
got
a problem.
It was never. So they gave us the options. If we would have known all of this was going to happen, if you would have asked most of us, I would have told them, don't even put the laterals in. Put your line, get your second loop for Old Town West, and that would have been sufficient. And this is why I've asked the question about 4 or 5 times at the meeting, was there going to be any incurred costs, and what are the options? Very gray in that matter. So I requested that something be put in writing, and this is what we received. Okay? So what we received and what people tend to agree on is that because the primary purpose of this water line was to serve as a backup, that we would have the options to hook up or not to hook up. So what I'm seeing tonight or whatever is that if we requested the water, or if there was that water was going to serve Forest Road, you know, strictly for that and not hooked up to Old Town West, I could see us going with these options and charging us these fees. But because the primary purpose had nothing to do with the homeowners there, not one homeowner requested water. Way back in the day when
So, Mr. Perry, sorry, what's your question?
my question is, why are we deviating in this bylaw from what the agreement was? And we are, about there is to be no incurred costs whatsoever, any incurred costs.
Right.
We're incurring costs in all 3 options. Whether you hook up or not, you're going to incur a cost. You're going to incur a cost when it comes to, for interest rates.
Yes, and that's why we had the discussion. And that's why, you know, that's why we, on a soulever le point, that's why we brought it up. Correct? But just to be clear, when you, if someone decides to connect, there will be a charge at that point in time.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Definitely, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and that's not, you don't get something for nothing. No, I understand
Yeah.
that. That lateral belongs, if I decide to hook up, or whoever decides to hook up to a lateral, should pay for that lateral. But there shouldn't be any incurred interest charges on that lateral, because
Right.
that's, to me, that should never have been part of option 3. It should have been, when you hook up, you're going to pay whatever that lateral cost is, but not a penalty.
Right. No, fair enough.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, anyway, that was one of the, it's kind of funny how this whole thing went. Like you say, it was very, no options were discussed. It was a very loose thing, and you talk about the allocations of funds for this. I don't understand, for the love of me, why the developer for Old Town West was not charged for this pipeline or whatever. For that pipeline that went across the water main should have been the responsibility of that developer for Old Town West. They benefited from that water line
Okay.
the
just-
most.
Monsieur Leduc?
I think that answer is the same for a resident as a developer. Nobody wants to pay. In this case, we wanted to have a loop to secure water provisions to that area. That's why the township, we went ahead and we offered to pay because we felt it was a security measure for us. So nobody wants to pay these expenses when they come up.
And just to be clear, this project was approved with what was put in place. We put in a loop as a security feature, if you will, in case something ever happens. Similar like we've done in Emblem recently. The township moved ahead with the loop because of a security feature. Did we incur that cost or impose that cost on the developer? Obviously, we didn't at that time. Is that something that can be looked at? Well, that's up for discussion in the future on different projects if we go ahead with that. But I mean, I understand the concept of having the developer pay. We like to say often have the developer pay, but developers pay their fair share, as does everybody else. So I think that when you state, the developer should pay, well, if the council wants to put that as an imposed fee, but we can't just keep getting the developer to pay for everything when even it's not his responsibility. That's all
I just thank you for your time. I just want to let you know that the primary purpose
Yep.
was not to hook those homes up.
Right.
Nobody made the request for that, and I don't know if there's anybody on Forest Road. There is only one house that is hooked up. And that house, the lateral is not on Forest Road. I just want to let you know that also. The lateral is not on Forest Road. It's on the walk path between Old Town West and Forest Road.
Okay.
So.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Harry Baker, 208 Forest Road. Thanks for paving the road. My question is, I'm a homeowner that has not hooked up to the water line. I have a lateral that's in place. I believe I paid for it when I paid for the construction costs for the pipe to cross my property. And I'm wondering, am I going to be charged the 3.5% for all the years until I ever connect up? That's my question.
Thank you very much. I can't answer at that time because council hasn't taken a position on that time.
Okay. You will
Once-
tell me when you make a decision what I'm going to be charged?
Yes, as indicated I believe in the letter, once council makes a decision and has put the options in place, then that would all be communicated to the residents
So
involved.
it could be retroactive is what you're saying? It could be retroactive, because when was the line put in, 2010 or?
I don't think that's the intent.
Yeah.
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, when we put something in place, it's usually when the bylaw is put in place, that's when any charge would begin. We don't retroactively go back 3-4 years, Monsieur Godin. Not that I've seen anyways. That's correct. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I know this was a lengthy discussion, but we just want to make sure that we give you as much information as possible. Move on to the next item, St. Pierre Road Servicing Bylaw Report FS 45 2018. The council receives report FS 45 2018 dated November 5th, 2018. Okay. Yeah, there will be further discussion on this item later, just for those who are staying or going, just so everybody knows. Council receives report FS 45 2018 dated November 5th, 2018, adopts the proposed St. Pierre Road Servicing Bylaw. Questions, comments on this file? The St. Pierre Road Servicing Bylaw? Anything to add from the administration? No? Move on to the next item. Item R, amendment to the Traffic and Parking Bylaw Report PIC 30 2018 to add parking spaces on the north side of Church Street in Russell. Council receives report PIC 30 2018 dated November 5th, 2018 and approves as recommended in this report the proposed bylaw amendment to Traffic and Parking Bylaw 31 2004 to add parking spaces in front of 491 Church Street in Russell, being the Roman Catholic Cemetery. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No. Move on. Item S, Animal Control Tribunal Appointment Report PIC 31 2018. The council receives report PIC 31 2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and the council approves a proposed bylaw to amend Schedule B6 of the Committee Bylaw 2017-108 to substitute the Canine Enforcement Appeal Committee with the proposed new Animal Control Tribunal, and the council approves a proposed bylaw to appoint Christine Hartig to preside the Animal Control Tribunal. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration?
As stated in the report, the idea is to get somebody that would preside this tribunal with experience. Presently, we do have a committee to hear these, have to hold these hearings, but as you know, there's not too many of these hearings, and the people are not used to doing quasi-judicial hearings for these matters, so it's difficult for the members to follow through with these hearings. It's easier when we have somebody with experience and with knowledge. So-
Who does these on a regular basis?
Yes.
Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, I just got a question because we're getting this
transitioning.
tonight. What about the transition time frame? Like, should this not wait till December 3rd meeting so that it follows the council term, or does it dissolve? Does this
Well-
meeting dissolve at the end of the term?
The proposed right now is to, the proposed term right now is for a year and to exceed 2 councils for another 2 if everything goes well. So I'd
Okay.
rather have it.
So
for
I think
1
it's
year
just a
at
matter
this
of clarification. Monsieur Leduc?
There's also an ongoing file, which went to court and needs
To be looked at.
to be looked at, so that's why we'd like to proceed with it tonight.
Perhaps Madame Camille Laflamme will just, when we look at, because I believe the way that our current committee bylaw states that it ends at the term of council, we might have to just reappoint when we do all the other committees. At that point in time, we might have to just confirm this one again. But if we put it in place tonight, at least we have it in time to advance that file that the administration is dealing with currently. Other questions, comments? No? Move on. Item T, Dog Bylaw Muzzling Orders, Report PIC 32-2018. The council receives Report PIC 32-2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and approves as recommended in this report the proposed bylaw to amend Bylaw 69-1990, being a bylaw to regulate the keeping and licensing of dogs, to add procedures for dog muzzling hearings. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No? Move on. Item U, Signed Bylaw Amendment Report PIC 33-2018. The council receives Report PIC 33A 2018 dated November 5th, 2018, and as recommended in this report, approves the proposed amendments to the Signed Bylaw 2016-052, Section 7.11, relating to temporary event signs relating to a cultural, political, all nonprofit, sporting, community, or religious event, or any other common non-commercial event, and temporary signs on or over township properties, to exempt temporary event signs from permit fees, and to limit the number to 4 signs for signs exceeding 0.5 square meters. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lorrain.
I'm gonna ask the question, and I know Andre sent an email off earlier today about it, but where do the graphic 3X signs fit into all this? Because they are, we'll say, more permanent signs, because they are anchored, and I believe that people have to buy them for like a 6-month period because they gotta change their information every so often, and there's a cost to that. How do those signs fit into the sign bylaw and into this exemption, if at all? Or this thing, or at all?
I don't think the signs you're referring to, like Photomania, the curling club used to have, that kind of stuff, I don't
The
think.
curling club still has.
This has nothing to do with those signs in particular.
These specific signs, I actually did speak with the gentleman
From graphics?
from graphics. Usually, he will put up some signs for some of these events, which are whatever, 3 square meters, I believe.
Like RAPA signs, church event signs.
But
that kind of
there's
stuff.
usually not, all of the events don't have 4. They usually have 2 signs, 3 signs. So this allows for 4 if they put them on township property. So for example, the Christmas parades, they put 2 up, stuff like that. So this Célèbre Ensemble, all those signs. because they're all put onto township property or.
Okay,
And this is making sure there is no permit fee, because I think the way it was worded before, it can be
They were-
interpreted that there should be a fee, and that wasn't the intent, so it's just clarification.
Yeah.
Counselor Saucier?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be rented that long. Like I know Rappa, they rent them for just
30
the
days.
period of the play, and then they're removed. So it's not a 6-month thing. It's just like I had them for the election and then.
those aren't the ones I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about the ones that flip.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like at the
Oh.
curling club, like over here at the, Le Voyage, Place Voyage.
Yeah,
there.
sure. Marlin
Oh.
Travel.
The
Like
travel.
those ones,
I think
the
in
ones
the
I'm
last,
asking about.
in the last sign bylaw revision, those were taken into account, and there was actually something put in there. Monsieur Luc from Graphic had given a lot of feedback into the last sign bylaw revision, specifically addressing his signs, and staff worked and put that into the existing
This
sign.
doesn't address those signs.
No.
okay. Okay.
One thing since we're discussing the sign bylaw, I'd like to mention is I've had discussions with Madame Bordeaux in regards to perhaps having a shorter time frame, temporary type of section. For example, Loisel Sport had their grand reopening after they have opened up and stuff, and wanted to have a few flags for the weekend. Well, they didn't have a permit for that, so they were asked to take them down. So perhaps we could give direction to look at a possibility of having something shorter period of time. Madame Bordeaux?
Yes, I did speak with a sign provider, and at next council meeting, you will see that the permit fee will be decreased for temporary signs. So they're suggesting that we keep the 30 days as is, with the reduction of the fees. If people want to put them for 10 days, 2 days with this reduction, then it won't matter.
Okay, so you're looking at it at this point in time.
Well, the next council meeting, you will have a reduction of fees for temporary signs.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions, comments, members of council? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, Madame Bordeaux? Perfect. Item V, Traffic Calming Policy Report ISPW 14-2018. The council receives report ISPW 14-2018 and approves the traffic calming policy. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Saucier.
yeah, I was curious about the 3.4, and it says not recommended always stops. And so I was also curious, from the emergency crews too, if they had any input into that. Because as far as I know, stop signs work, and, that it would be effective as if there's an area where there's a lot of accidents or concern at an intersection. I know there was one out in Winchester that's known for accidents, and then they have the, the vibration thing that as you're coming to the stop. Because what I was reading in this report, like, it said, they were opposed to speed bumps and that there's noise, like they have them all through Carleton University, and again, it slows traffic down, it works, it's effective. So I was curious about those comments from
Monsieur Le-
bylaw and also from the fire department.
Monsieur Bourgon, c'est ton rapport, je crois. Si tu-
Yes, Monsieur le Maire. As for the four-way stops not being used as a traffic calming, that's clear in the Highway Traffic Act. Four-way, if it's not warrant, like warrant means like if there's not enough traffic to trigger the implementation of a four-way stop, should never be used to slow down traffic. So really the policy and other policy that we've looked at all reflect that a four-way stop should not be used as a traffic calming device. So there's other measures to accomplish.
And in-
Such as, because like I'm saying, if someone's seeing a stop sign, they're gonna slow up. And come to the stop sign? Like, what other measures are you suggesting?
Well, the bowlers that we installed in the last few years around the school zone, those are traffic calming device.
Right.
Those are things that we've put in the roadway in different measures to slow traffic or to calm your volume of traffic.
Okay.
And there's other physical obstructions that you mentioned in your
You
report.
can reduce your roadway so those things will be used as well when we review for new subdivision as an example.
And it said reducing speed is ineffective, but I mean, we saw that in between Russell and Embrun when we reduced the speed, because, I mean, there was 2 kids hit, 1 being killed, and there's been no incident since we reduced the speed. And I said, when it's 60, people are going 80. When it's 80, people are going 100. Typically, that's human nature, you know, that they go over the speed limit. So how is that not effective to reduce the speed?
Well, in your example, I'll just make the comment that can you say the reason that there has been no accident is because of the speed reduction? How many years before those accidents did people drive at that speed? You know, every accident, you know, I don't want to say anything negative about a situation, but you can't just say correlation, well, because we reduced the speed, now there's no accidents. I don't think that's the case. I've seen enough accidents to know that, you know, accidents happen in a certain circumstance, and speed is a definite factor, but you can't say that because their speed limit was reduced, we haven't seen any problems. There's also other factors that come into play. Councillor Lorraine, you have a question?
Yeah, we mentioned, you know, these different methods to slow down traffic, and, you know, we'll look at it in new subdivisions. What about existing subdivisions? And I know that there's been many requests or talk about it in the Russell Trails, where there's 2 trail crossings, and people have been asking for years to do something, and I think there's a sign, and it's literally about this big, that says kids playing. And that's the only traffic calming measure that's ever been put there. We put speed limit signs to say, you know, to see how fast cars are going. And I think, you know, over the years now that I've sat here and we've put those speed limit signs out, I think they come back and they say the exact same thing every single time. No issues. The speed is good. Well, it's simple. When the numbers go up, people slow down. When the thing is gone, people speed up again. So at what point in time do we actually just say, yeah, we need to put something in place, and it needs to happen before somebody gets hit, before somebody gets killed, right? Like, that's something that we need to do, and I don't know how we go about doing that other than council just sitting here and saying, do it.
Well, I think the first step is what's being presented here tonight, is that we actually have a traffic calming policy that we put in place, and that gives staff and council and residents the opportunity to address issues that come forward.
And what if it doesn't meet this policy? Then what happens?
Well-
We sit there and stand by the policy and say,
Council always has the option to go against its policy and impose something if it wishes. But at least we'll have the proper information that's brought forward to council when this comes forward. Councillor Saucier.
Yeah, so those, the ones that Councillor Laurent's talking about, where it posts your speed limit, like how fast you're going, when, like, for instance, Edie Road was really notorious for going really fast, flying over the trail. Now that the ballards are down, people are picking up their speed again, I noticed, going over the trail. So having something like that, would that be considered a positive deterrent or calming measure? Traffic calming measure is when it says, you know, you're going 80, and it's placed there. I know, I agree with Councillor Laurent's point that often when they're removed, then everybody goes back to their old speed. But is that in the report viewed as a positive calming measure?
Monsieur Bourgon.
Through Mr. Mayor again. Yeah, and those type of permanent signs will be put in our 2019 budget as well. Since the county offer a program that they would pay half of
Have to sign on county roads.
The sign off of those radars, so we are gonna apply for some of those. As for when we do our, the measuring, there, in some extents that we sometimes looked the signs on the opposite way of the oncoming traffic, and we find out that sometimes the average of speed shows that there is no speeding as well. So again, it depends on the situation, but we'll be able at least now, like, to, when we receive comments from public, we have a procedure in place to follow.
So just to be clear, the sign can actually be put up without the numbers being displayed,
Or,
And
or
it's
reading
the opposite
way.
direction, but it's still gathering data.
Exactly.
So that when those signs, for example, yes, in some instances when you see the signs slow down, but even when there's no numbers, we're gathering data as to what the situation is when the lights are on or when the lights are off, and see how the difference
And then we
is.
can have a good picture of like of how the traffic's behaving, the behavior of the traffic in this area.
And in those circumstances where we do use those, do you bring that back to us? And then we make a decision on whether or not we want to go ahead with traffic calming regardless of the information that's presented to us? Or do you take it back on from an administration perspective and decide, well, no, it doesn't meet any criteria, therefore we're not gonna move ahead with anything?
I think, Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon, you have a plan presented in front of council where it's what you want to put in place, if you're doing it differently now, for Monsieur Lorrain, what is the process right now when you get that information?
Well, right now, we had this, like, the way we have our policy, it's at the screening point. So if it doesn't meet the criteria that we have in place, that would be the end of the process. So council would not see the ones that are being screened out. The options that like meet the requirement, those are the ones that council will see at that point in time.
And obviously, I've seen, I think, maybe 2 in my time here of resident petitions coming forward. Obviously, residents always have the option that if they go through the screening process and you provide that information to the residents, and if they're not happy with the decision of the administration, I hope they're informed that they have the option of always coming to see council and making a delegation request if they so choose. I know in the past, I've had residents who have asked for the numbers. I've asked the numbers from the administration. I go sit down with the resident, I show them the numbers, and that's when I hear often from the resident was, yeah, I kind of expected that because when I thought cars were speeding down the street, I'd turn around and look at the sign and realize, wow, they're only going 40 and it's a 50 zone. So, it's all about perception as well. But I think that if the residents are being provided with the information and they're not happy with the decision of the administration to not proceed, for example, they always have the option to come and seek counsel. D'autres questions, commentaires?
So in this new process, do they all come to council?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If all the requirements like of the pre-screening are met, yes, it will come in front of council.
That's not what I asked. I asked if all of them are going to come to council.
Sorry. At this point, no.
Non. Tu peux-tu mettre cette section-là du rapport? Je pense que c'est la politique comme telle. So that's the current policy being, that's the process being presented to council.
And how many do we go through in a year, approximately?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon?
Request of speeding in some areas.
Requests for traffic calming measures in certain areas where we start off with, where we start the process of evaluating.
At this point, I'd like to have that type of feature in place. I think we may have received 2 in the last year or so. Like, it's not something that we receive frequently, especially since we install, there's some in all, like our crossing from the trail and school zone. We didn't really receive that many for those specific type of traffic calming.
So every time we put out the speed signs, we've only done that twice in the last year?
Sorry, I misunderstood. Like for speeding requests or the sign put in place, yeah, those will receive like several, probably around 15 per season.
Okay, but isn't that a traffic calming request?
At this point in time, the only policy that we had was to reduce the speed. Like if a resident were asked to reduce it from 50 to 40, but at least now we do have the traffic calming in place that we would use this one as well to see if it would fit better than actually to reduce the speed, like the old policy that was put in place in 2012.
I think part of the process I like here as well is that this is verifying with the residents in that area if they are all in favor. Because historically, somebody could just come and say, yeah, I want to reduce the speed on that street. And then, well, what about the other 50 people who will live on that street who are completely fine with that speed? At least this process notifies the residents living in that area and seeks to get their thoughts and approval if they are in favor of reducing the speed limit or whatever the traffic calming item that the administration is recommended. Councillor Associate.
What about the requests that we had? There was a intersection problem, like I'm looking at the safety problem. The one where there's a lot of accidents, North Russell Road, I believe it is, South Russell at Route 400, is it? So are we looking into that particular area because there's been numerous accidents there?
Yeah, Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. We are. We had discussion, and that's a part of our traffic calming policy. We had discussion with the counties, and they are looking at the assessment of that specific intersection since it's an upper tier road at that specific intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Conseiller Lorrain.
Is 400's the upper tier road as well?
Monsieur
Monsieur
Maire.
Bourgon.
Only South Russell.
Okay.
But when it's an intersection, it's always the upper tier that, in this case, would trigger and do the investigation to see if a four-way stops warrant or what other measures can be done. In that
Okay,
area.
but on the stop sign itself, can we not put a two-way stop sign underneath the stop sign?
Mr. Mayor.
Monsieur Bourgon.
The two-way tab, it's not recognized by the OTM, so therefore the United County.
OTM, I don't understand what that is, sorry.
Ontario Traffic
the
Manual.
Ontario Traffic Manual,
Okay,
which it's a manual that dictate which type of sign to use along roadways. So since it's not being recognized by that manual, the counties won't put that type of tab on their stop sign.
so
And
that stop sign is their stop sign, even though
because
it's on our
because
road?
Exactly. The intersection is governed by the upper tier, so in this case, the United Counties.
And and I'll ask the mayor, you've had this discussion at the counties, and they won't put that sign on that road?
No, this hasn't come to the to county council yet. It's come to I believe it's between the administrations right now. But it
That's
hasn't-
correct. So the administration and the county level are doing the investigation, looking at the amount of collision, like how many cars pass through that intersection on all directions. So once that analysis is done, they'll provide a recommendation, I believe, to their committee
Public Works Committee.
if it needs to go there.
So if it's not if that two-way stop is not recognized by the OTM, then why do we see it on other stop signs? Like, I don't understand.
I've seen
three-way stop, I've seen four-way stop, I've seen two-way stop. But it's not recognized. Well, somebody recognized it because it got put on.
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon.
You're correct, Councillor Lorrain. Those type of like it's being put up at some location, but it doesn't mean that it's recognized under the Highway Traffic Act or the OTM in this case. So it's.
Monsieur Leduc.
I guess we could use that as a defense ourselves in case we were sued for something wrong at the intersection. We could not rely on that because it's not part of the OTM. It doesn't mean we can't do it, but we can't rely on that to say it justifies it.
But maybe it's just me, but I think common sense at some point needs to prevail. And if we think that a two-way sign is gonna help, Why can't we just put it up?
Yeah, I think for the experience I've had at the Unity counties and the discussions I've had on different files, unfortunately, when it comes to the court system, common sense doesn't always prevail. They saw, the counties were sued at one point in time because a sign they had was, 5 feet further than it should have been, even though it was still applicable. But because they didn't follow the OTM exactly, the court found in favor of the plaintiff, and the counties lost in their court case. So that's the type of stuff the county, they look to do everything by the book. Definitely, we can have that discussion with them. It'll come to Public Works. I think they're looking at different options as well at this point in time. Do they put a light up, or like a flashing light on top of the stop, or whatever the case is? But they are doing their investigation, and they will come back to options to our administration. Administration, if they're not happy with the solution, can always advise council. I can have direction, or I can bring it up to the County Public Works Committee.
Well, I'd like something to be expedited on this, because we can't keep waiting for accidents to happen at this location. Because you got to remember, when an accident happens, what happens? Resources go out. Fire trucks go out, fire department, paramedics. Everyone has to go to the scene, OPP.
Yep.
Especially when there's serious injury. So we're taking all of these resources when, in theory, potentially, we could have resolved the issue by having a simple sign, light, whatever. Like, I don't want this to drag on for 2 years, going from administration to administration, council to council. Like,
Nope.
let's make a freaking decision at some point on it.
Well, before I make a decision, I'd like to have all the information. For example,
So let's keep
I don't-
having people have accidents.
well, Monsieur Leduc, maybe Chief, how many accidents have we had in the last 5 years at that location? To find out how many. Okay, because I think of all our intersections in the municipality, I can think of a few that I think there's probably accidents going on there as well. Yeah. So, Councillor Associate,
I think 12 in 1 year,
no,
No.
5 years.
in 5 years. Oh, but still, that's a high percentage.
Another one tonight.
That's a,
Yeah, might be. We might have areas that are higher percentage than that as well.
but we're aware of that one. So I said, so let's
Yeah.
address it.
But again, in this case, it's a county responsibility, and the counties are addressing it. So,
You can say they're addressing it. I disagree. I don't think they're addressing it. At least not quick enough. It's in our municipality. It should be in our jurisdiction to get something done on it.
Monsieur
Or at least
Leduc?
push the file.
I think council could have said that prior to last intervention with Councillor Paul raising this about a month ago. And I think Mr. Bourgon and his team challenged the counties to look at it now. So it's being looked at right now. So we just can't say that it's being looked at now. Could have been done 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it could have.
Yeah.
But at this point, we raised it, and now they're paying attention to it.
yeah. Councillor Paul raised it a month ago. The administration went and talked with the counties right away, and they're looking into the matter. Should it be done in 1 week? Should it be done in 1 month? But again, who's to say that putting a two-way stop will fix the problem? Maybe it won't fix the problem. I agree that we have to give them time to do their job, and if we're not happy with the result of that investigation, then yeah, I'll be up in arms and we'll go fight for it. But I think we actually have to give them the time to actually look at the matter, get some information, and make the right decision.
Or make a decision. We're not sure if they're going to make the right decision.
Right, but do we want to rush them into making a bad decision? I just want to make sure we have the right decision moving forward. Next item, Brisson-Moss Municipal Drain Modification Report ISPW 15-2018. The council receives report ISPW 15-2018 and approves Robert Bordeaux request to start the process to modify Brisson-Moss Municipal Drain, and the council appoint McIntosh Perry Engineering to be the engineering firm working on the Brisson-Moss Drain modification. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No? Item X, Community Grants Report PR 30, 2018. That council receives report PR 30, 2018 dated November 5th, 2018 and approves the following department's recommendation for community grants donations in 2018 to the following groups. 1, to approve an in-kind grant in the amount of $309 to Valoris for children and adults of Prescott Russell for the rental of the Ambram Community Center for a Halloween party on October 31st, 2018. 2, to approve an in-kind grant in the amount of $165 to the Russell Optimist Club for the rental of Frank Kennard Hall for Halloween activities on October 27th, 2018. 3, to approve an in-kind grant in the amount of $165 to the Russell Optimist Club for the rental of the Frank Kennard Hall for the Children's Christmas on December 15th, 2018. 4, to approve an in-kind grant in the amount of $206 to École Sainte-Thérèse d'Avila Parents Committee for the rental of Marionville Community Center for the school Christmas lunch on December 18th, 2018. 5, to approve an ad hoc grant in the amount of $500 to the Limoges Christmas Basket Committee to help cover some of the costs of their annual Christmas baskets. 6, to approve an ad hoc grant in the amount of $1,000 to Groupe Action pour l'Enfant, la Famille, la Communauté de Prescott Russell to help them with their 2018 snowsuit fundraising campaign. 7, to approve an in-kind grant in the amount of $265 to the Russell Minor Hockey Association for the rental of the Frank Kennard Hall for their IP Fun Day on December 8th, 2018. According to the Community Grants and Contribution Guidelines, these requests meet our requirements for funding. Questions, comments, members of council? Councilor Lorrain?
I do have one, just a general question, because I noticed most of these are for the end of the year, or towards the end of the year. Can somebody make a request for next year yet?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guittard?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire, members of council. That's a good question. No, unfortunately, we do not accept any grant requests. We collect them because usually the budget is passed in November. So as soon as the budget is passed, then usually we bring in the reports for the new year. This year, that would have been my question probably for the next sessions that we're going to have for budget, because obviously the budget will not be passed before February, early March. So council will have to make a decision. What do we do with the early ones, like January and February? We usually have the two pre-approved ones, for example, the two Marionville and Ambram carnivals. And so we'll have to look into what's pre-approved usually for those first 3 months. And then there might be there's already some new ones that came in, but unfortunately we can't answer them right now.
So, a question for Mr. Leduc then, so should staff be coming back to council in December, either on December 3rd or December 17th, and asking for an interim process to approve community grants? I don't know how that's gonna work.
I would think just come with requests and council can approve them as we do normally, and when we get to budget time, then there'll be a list presented to council members to say, you have approved this, take that into consideration of, I mean, they're pretty standard, they're the ones that repeat every year for the Célébrons Ensemble. There might be some new ones, depending on the amounts, but we'll be able to, Monsieur Leduc, your thoughts on the matter?
Well, we know where council has been over the past 4 years on those two lines there in the budget. So we could come up with some minimums of what we're ready to spend. And again, if council commits to that, then you're sure in the next year's budget, whatever you say yes to is there. So maybe we should maybe look at the first 2-3 months where we know that those are coming up. And what's not called for yet, we set an amount, let's say $2,000-3,000 out of the, so we know we have that to play with, and we can come back. So we could work an interim method. This way, we have at least some decision taken done for those associations looking for funding or confirmation of their revenue streams.
Okay. Councilor Sosi?
Yeah, and so do we have enough funds right now to cover all these requests? And do you have extra at the end of the year? Like, will you have a surplus?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, as you can see with the report, there's always the budget attached, and you always have the accumulated surplus if there is. So as of now, if everything is approved tonight, In kind, we only have $317 left, but in ad hoc, we still have $6,375 left. So, and we only have, 3 meetings to go, so, and basically, until the end of the year, there's not many more activities that will happen, so.
And have
So-
the requests been up this year, like to previous years?
Yes, this year, it was a bit, it's pretty much the same in the in-kind, except for last year, we had to come to council and ask to transfer some funds from the ad hoc to the in-kind, because we had a
Right.
bigger request. And this year, what happened, why we have a bigger amount in the ad hoc, is because the Winter Carnival of Emblem didn't
It's
take their
canceled.
cash money, so
Yeah,
that's why.
okay. Merci.
So it might be the funds that we have, we might be able just to carry over those funds for a short term. I'll let the administration look at those options. Okay. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, sorry, I'm done with that one, but I just have a question. Can we take out item V from with the traffic calming from the consent?
Yep.
And deal with it separately? Because I have another question on it.
Okay. Next item, item Y, Fire Department Quarterly Report, Russ M. 06-2018. The council receives report Russ M. 06-2018, dated November 5th, 2018. Questions, comments on this file? Anything to add, chiefs? No? Perfect. Thank you very much. Keep doing the good job you guys are doing. Item Z, 2018 Annual Report Card, Report CAO 16-2018. The council receives Report CAO 16-2018 dated October 1st, 2018. Dated November 5th or October 1st? Was this pushed back? November 5th, okay. I think you've been working on it for a little bit, that's okay. Monsieur Leduc, would you like to speak to this file?
Oui, Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil, donc c'est le résultat du survey qu'on fait annuellement depuis 3 ans. Donc, à nouveau, il y a eu une bonne participation, même si c'est un petit peu moins que l'année passée. L'année passée, on avait eu 394 répondants. Cette année, 376. So we were maybe 20 short of last year's number of people responding to our survey. Et aussi intéressant, 63% des gens, c'était leur première fois qu'ils répondaient au survey. Donc, we don't have the repetition every year of people responding because this year, again, it shows that 63% are new respondents to the survey. So that's quite interesting. Also, mostly more demographics, women seem to be answering this survey. And also, between the ages of 35 to 65 seems to be the age groups that are responding to our survey. Overall, I think about 74% of the people, or at least 7.4 out of 10 times, will somebody invite someone to move into our township, which is quite positive regarding the quality of life in this area. So this is quite positive. We simplified the questions in the survey to have maybe more specific answers. So we had to change a bit of the presentation of the statistics this year, but in questions 3, for example, where 90% of the people say they have an experience with one of these following services below the list, there's a list there, and then you go to the satisfaction rates, and you see 47.3 are satisfied and 35.5 are neutral, so leaving 17% unsatisfied. So it's kind of, I don't know where they are, but it's a small how do you say that, sample of people being surveyed on this. But anyways, so about we'll look at the end result, which is 17.2. Say they are somewhat dissatisfied on some of the services we offer. So I guess we'll take it positively that the majority say it's either good or neutral. If you go to question 6, I'd like to just, there's a few, we receive over 250 answers to the question, how can we make our services better? Obviously, there's a lot of repetition out of these comments received. So we summarize them for you on page 6 in the report. I'd just like to point out some in this section here at this point, and some more later on. But seems that the yard waste and more large item pickups is something that people are looking for. Improved payment options, credit cards or other online payment options. The indoor pool and the rec complex have come up many times in the answers we received. In case of wildlife enforcement, a lot of parking, noise, dog on leashes, door-to-door solicitors, all these seems to be coming up a lot about how can we do a little different there, ensuring that the bylaws are being respected. We saw more speed limit signs or calming devices, so again, tonight the policies goes to meet that kind of target. So these are some of the questions that were higher numbered in those comments received, and you see there's a list of others items which are also quite important, but didn't have as many people responding to those as what I mentioned to you. We also had added a question this year, like question 11, which was about the sports dome. We were back, this started in May and ran to June, so obviously not too many people. Well, we had opened on June 10th last year, but so you can see the portions of people who had gone over to the dome at that time and what they liked or didn't like about the dorm. Mostly, there were not too many negative comments at that time, since it was just quite new and open. Et puis, on a pu voir à la question 12, là, quel genre de nouvelle programmation que le Dôme pourrait offrir. Donc, ça va donner du matériel à l'équipe de Mme Guittard pour voir qu'est-ce qui pourrait être intégré dans la programmation du Dôme. And the overall comments that are on page 9 of the report. And what's coming again as common trends with previous years, and we hear a lot, is customer service-oriented staff remains a priority. So again, this is something we have to focus on. Also, many people are asking how to get in touch with us on weekends or at night. So more publications as far as our hours of operations, and also where to call whenever you need of us when we're closed. Again, we've heard lots of comments about local shopping, more into restaurants and more local shopping experience. We know we're working on this. It takes time to have some results there, but certainly it's coming up again this year. I repeat, the indoor pool in high demand. Now that the dome is open, now there's a perception now we can do another project, and the pool seems to be one that's being raised lots. Again, two more things. Road pavements, either on county roads or on Township Road, there's a comment about more paving to be needed. I don't know if we'll have discussion on the budget to see how we can increase our expenditures on paving, but certainly that's something that's coming up. And also with the increasing number of young families in the village and the township, the additional daycare services is something that people are raising in the comments that we receive in numbers. So the rest are still there. They're not to say they're not as important, but certainly numbers were just supported by what I'm just raised with you tonight. So what we do with this is that every year when we do our business plan, we come in this list, and these comments that we receive, and department heads sometimes like the comments and sometimes don't like the comments. But certainly it makes them reflect as to what should be a priority in next year's budget business plan. And also we'll raise these issues again when we talk our strategic plan for 2019 to 22. So those issues will be raised. I'll be bringing them to your attention again for discussion further as to are they a priority to council or not. So this is a summary of the report card of 2018, and if there's any more questions from council, I'll answer them.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Leduc. It's nice to see that we have a different group of people that is responding, and we're getting consistently over the last few report cards roughly around the same rating, if you will.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, Mr. Mayor. It's a B+ rating, and there were more A's than last year. So we're going forward with this. So it's positive.
Okay, perfect. Question, comment, Councillor Associate?
Yeah, I enjoyed reading the report. Of course, I didn't agree with all the comments, but one was, and I just want to mention, Monsieur Bourgon was snowplow and salt. I didn't agree with that comment because I thought last winter, I thought the road crews did an amazing job, and the sidewalks being cleared as well. And I would particularly take note of it, and it seemed like I thought we were out there a lot more last year. What concerned me was the 37% not yet been to the dome, and so then I was just, going to throw out a suggestion that maybe we might look at an open house again, as to invite people in and get a tour, and you know, try and get them to come in and see it, because there's still some, like I hear people saying, oh, I've never been in there, you know, and so I don't know if that's something that we would consider.
Perfect.
And then, of course, the increased traffic calming measures I found interesting. And then I also found it interesting that they want a pool, but they want their taxes lowered. So some of those were oxymorons. But the one that concerned me was dissatisfied with the economic development. So that was the other one. So, but I enjoyed the report. So I guess, so now what do we do with all that?
Monsieur Leduc.
As far as economic development, I know it's been coming out lots in your campaign, and we hear a lot too, but we have to say that it takes time to get some results. Sometimes you see people spending 4 years on a file before it's resolved. We had official plan modifications that we were expecting changes maybe 6 months earlier, and we were expecting announcements since the time you've passed a new official plan. That announcement has not been yet made. So obviously, if those announcements would have been made 6 months ago, and if they were there, maybe you see none of these suggestions or issues raised. Not to say we can do more. We can do more, definitely. Like in every file, we can do more. But but no. As there's more development going on, I'm sure that we'll be able to satisfy some of the issues about restaurants and about shopping and those kind of things. So.
I think it's important as well to remember that as we raise the bar, we raise expectations as well. You know, we've come a long way in the last 4, 8, 12 years, and now people, that's becoming the normal, what they're expecting, and now they're looking for more. So we're continuously trying to improve. It's a matter of, are we improving as fast as people would like? Well, that's always a challenge, but, you know, can't make everybody happy. Councillor Sosi?
Yeah, there was one other thing. I saw somebody was asking for an increase of garbage. But I think if, you know, we looked at the other request, which was the green bin or the composting more, that then they'd have less garbage. So I'd like to look at that. And then the communications, I think we've really worked on that, and Mr. Mayor has as well. So once we get our electronic board, because they were suggesting Facebook, well, we do that, you know, and we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. But people also have to seek the information and go to our website and go to the different places that it is promoted, watch the webcams and things like that. So, but I think the electronic board will be a big asset.
Merci beaucoup. One suggestion I would, and it's a minor one, in regards to the report card, when we talk about the services, even better, question 6, and the observations, I don't know if it'd be possible in the future, just sort of break that down by department, if you will. You know, like is communications, there's 3 points that are in different locations. Essayer de juste le mettre par section, dire, okay, these would fall under this department, or these would fall under this department, just to make it a little bit easier to read. So, I think, again, you know, as mentioned, we're going in the right direction, definitely. You know, if you look at over the last 3, c'est the troisième. You know, we've seen 350, almost 400 people each time, and it's always a good percentage of new people doing it. So it's nice to see, as we do it year after year, we get more information. Councillor Pohl.
Just one observation. We kind of talked about it a couple of meetings ago. People were asking to be open late or on weekends. We threw out there, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the option of being open at like a Tuesday night till 7 o'clock, where 2 or 3 people stay late, and then they get off early on a Friday afternoon to compensate for the hours. It's a great service to the community that you're open late one night a week. You can come get a dog tag or whatever you need to get. Rather than taking a day off work or an afternoon off work to get a dog tag, that you can do that. Or things, get a building permit, apply for it in the evening rather than going during the daytime.
Yeah, I think that's
Just a way to compensate, because I saw that twice, people asking for longer hours. It's an economical way of doing it. It doesn't cost the taxpayer any more money. You're just shifting hours from an evening, 1 day a week, to getting off early on a Friday.
good suggestion. D'autres commentaires, Monsieur Leduc?
Well, I didn't put up there that we were the 3rd best place to live in Canada, so we should probably repeat itself. And,
I repeat
even
that
though
one often.
We're ranked there. I'll stay my list. That's lots of things that we need to do, so we'll keep on working hard at it.
No, congratulations to the team. You guys have been working hard, and the community is noticing how hard staff are working and how the township is doing, so thank you very much. Move on to the next item. Item 12, notice motions, we have none. Item 13, question period on meeting of the day. If anyone has a question, please come up to the lectern and state your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Charles Armstrong, 85 Castlebow in Embrun. I have questions on item 11H. It's just a general question. You don't have to bring up the actual item. But it was the Councillor Saucier mentioned that in some cases we have a rather short distance or setback from the side lot line at 1.2 meters. I know the National Building Code would require non-combustible construction in the two buildings. Does the Ontario Building Code require something similar, non-combustible construction, after you get the two residences too close? And you don't have to answer that tonight, but if somebody can just
Yeah, I
give
think
me
we'll
an
look,
answer,
we'll look into that.
it
I
would
could,
be,
building codes like that thick, I couldn't tell you.
I know. It's just, okay. The next one is item 11U, and that's on the changes to the sign. What motivated the maximum of 4 and the 0.5 square meters, those two requirements?
Monsieur Leduc, Madame Bordeaux?
The number 4 is, came out after speaking with people using those signs, and from experience, what we've seen is they usually use 2 or 3, so 4 was kind of the number if they want to put a sign at each end of town, and so.
North,
that's where-
south, east, west?
Yes, so that's where the 4 came in. And the 0.5 is the regular size for most signs used right now for special events, like the little signs that they peg in the ground.
Okay. My next one is on 11V, and that's the traffic calming. And I'm just wondering why we're not in the traffic calming policy using the current version of the Canadian Guide to Traffic Calming. I mean, it's less than a year old.
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. The manual was used to help us, to assist us on the preparation of that policy.
So it was used as the part of the research on developing this
Yes.
policy?
Because the
Exactly.
policy mentions the 1998 manual, not the 2018 manual.
Okay.
Okay.
Monsieur Bourgon?
I was gonna add, like, we'll make the correction.
Thank you.
Okay. Finally is, again, in the same item, in your procedure, you mentioned consulting with the neighborhood. What constitutes a neighborhood? How would you determine that? Would it be residents, property owners? What about businesses or others? And how big would that be? Is there a way you would define that or determine that?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Bourgon?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't paying attention to the question.
Essentially, il veut savoir quand que dans ton processus, you go to residents and discuss. He's looking, how do you determine, c'est-tu juste la rue, c'est tout le projet au complet?
We're gonna use the same type of principle used with the planning department, to use the area.
A radius
The radius, the affected.
of where you're looking at making a change?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Lorrain?
So in that scenario, would you be, like, if you're looking to reduce the speed limit in a entire subdivision, will that mean you will talk to the entire subdivision versus, I'll use Russell Trails because I'm familiar with it, where on Station Trail, you've got a trail crossing there, and if people want bollards put in there, you would do the 120-meter circle around that location. Are you gonna talk, is it gonna be different radiuses for different requests? Because obviously, if you're gonna change the speed limit on Station Trail, and then on Settlement Lane, and then on Boxcar, and on Junction, you're doing it all over the place. So how do you,
Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So if we're using the example to change the speed limit in the full subdivision, in that case, we would use the consultation in the full subdivision. If you look at a traffic calming device at a specific location, that's where we'll use the radius.
Okay.
The other question, what would you do if, for example, an example of where you would want to provide traffic calming on a road that is used by students going to a school where you may only have one or two places, but the school population may be from a significant distance away, and you may have parents of those students a significant distance away interested in that particular traffic calming measure?
I think, Monsieur Bourgon, we could contact the school and have a discussion with them and try and get some input off them. That would be my first thought, but
I don't have a specific answer for that question, but that could be an option in that case.
and I think when we're looking, it depends on what kind of traffic calming measure we're looking at, you know. This, you know, when in case of the Bullards, you know, we decided to put them at the crosswalks of the crossing areas of the school. That's not something that we went to, you know, to consult everybody on. I think it depends on the request that's coming in and what kind of what they're looking for and what the administration determines will be the best way. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Name for the record, please.
My name is Mike Bray, owner of Louis Bray Construction. Good evening, council. I just wanted to ask a question because I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Leduc and Ms. Tremblay to explain my position, why I took exception to the this in lieu of tax. So I had an opportunity to explain why I didn't think it was appropriate, but at the same time, I see there's 684 here. I'd like to get an explanation of how that number came about.
So, Madame Tremblay can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reduction of $684 was after a recalculation when you looked at the Phase 2 project only, c'est ça? No? Madame Tremblay?
So the 684?
684, I believe it was.
from 2% on $25,000 an acre on 3.42 acre, compared to what the initial calculation was done on the 3.42 acre at $35,000 an acre.
So you charged not on
I
$35,000,
charged
but
it
on
$25,000
$25,000.
like everybody else, without considering the prime price that was charged.
And you didn't take into account, you didn't charge for the first project, the 1.5 difference.
That was never charged.
No, it's only on the Phase 2 at the rate of $25,000 as opposed to the rate of $35,000.
Exactly. So that's the difference. So
Okay.
basically, initially, we were charged 2,300 and something. That was done based on the $35,000 an acre for 3.42 acre. And the calculation that we've made to equal to the difference of the 685 that we're recommending is the 3.42 acre at $25,000 an acre.
So essentially, you're charging Bray Construction the same amount that other businesses have paid on the same amount.
Exactly.
You're doing apples to apples,
Yeah.
is that correct? Okay. That answer your question?
Well, it does, but it doesn't sound to me there's any consideration for the $50,000 premium I paid to have the period of time to put both buildings up. That's the crux of my issue, is that an agreement was made with Monsieur Dan Gassian at the time. You got a 2-year window. We like to do it within, say, 5 years. And it was presented to council. Council came back and says, well, we'll have to charge you a premium. So we were doing an investigation, see where else, options with respect to building and whether it's Castleman or Rockland. And so, we're doing our due diligence and looking at our options. So we made a decision based on what was presented to us, but there comes my term, the goalposts have seemed to have moved on us. And I said, well, that's not what we agreed to. And here, now we're looking at a new tax grab here, so, is it gonna break the bank? No, but am I here in principle? Yeah, I did pay $50,000 premium, so I don't wanna take that in late.
Nope, I understand, and that subject is separated again and to be discussed in the next part of the council meeting.
Okay, so just for my own clarity, there's no open vote, it's behind,
No, like, essentially, we're doing the question period, resolutions the next item.
okay,
We're going to take a 5-10 minute break in between,
okay.
but you're more than welcome to stay for the resolutions and hear further discussion on all the topics.
Thank you for hearing me. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? No? Next item is item 14, resolutions. Before we get to that point, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 5:02, and we will.
25 after.
35
It's
after?
quarter after. How long a break do you want?
Oh, God, jeez. My glasses are going to have to get better. Okay, so we'll be back at 8:25, and we'll check for the dates, to clarify the dates for that, for the bylaw for the meetings. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, we're back. Next item, item 14, resolution. Motion that council approve all items, recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from department and council committees, except for,
We'll go with the main motion first.
okay, I need a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Councilor Lorrain, seconded by Councilor Saucier. We will amend it to remove items
11B, 11K, 11P, and 11V.
V. So BKPV.
Yes.
Which one? H. So 11H. So 5 items. So we'll vote on the main motion except for items B, H, K, P, and V. I need a mover and a seconder for that amendment. Moved by Councilor Lorrain, seconded by Councilor Saucier. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. We are now vote on every item separately, so we will return to item B, Break Construction. That council receives report EcoDev 06-2018 dated November 5th, 2018. Then members of council authorize the following recommendations. That the Township of Russell reimburse Break Construction a portion of the cash in lieu of parkland fee for a total amount of $684. Questions, members of council? Councilor Lorrain?
This one's hard for me. Because I sit back and say, well, everyone needs to pay their share. And then you sit back and you go, well, when was the agreement put in place and when was the actual transaction put in place? And the bylaws. And then we're gonna come up with the exact same thing when we talk about Forest Road in a minute. So I can't sit here and say one thing for one and one thing for the other when it's gonna be pretty much the same type of scenario where in this circumstance, phase 1 was put in, and when they went to go put in phase 2, a new bylaw had come into play. And now they're being charged the extra. And I think it's what, 2,300 total, 1,700 or whatever. But when I talk about Forest Road, same situation could occur where we say today it's gonna cost them $3,000 if they connect, but if not, down the road, it's gonna cost them $3,000 plus interest, plus capital charges, plus this. Well, we gotta play with a level playing field. We gotta be sure, and I need to make sure that everyone understands that going forward, if that's the case, then we stick to the same type of mentality on it. we want to do what's right. We want to make sure that everyone's of the same understanding. So I find myself in a situation where I got to disagree with my previous comments that I made earlier tonight on this one item, because to me it makes sense that if there was never a discussion on it and it wasn't part of the process, that I'm gonna have to agree with the mayor on this one and say, well, maybe we don't charge that 2% on this item. So that's where I'm sitting right now, but that's just me.
Okay.
What's that? That's the hard part, that I agree with the mayor, because it doesn't happen very often, so. Well, thanks,
So-
Cindy, I appreciate you pointing that out.
So in this case, I believe one of the alternate recommendations in the report was to waive the cash in lieu parkland fee for the total amount. So
If you move it, I will second it.
I will move it. Councillor Lorrain will second it. Any, so on that
So this is an amendment.
amendment, I'll need a vote on that amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? So the amendment is carried. So we will now approve as amended to waive the fee. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So that's item B. We now move on to item H, which was the property owned by Tarn Homes Corporation known as 146, 148, 150, 152 Boxcar Crescent in Russell. I need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councillor Pohl, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. Questions, comments? Councillor Pohl? No? Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's the official plan that we put in place. Any other questions or comments?
Comment on it, or?
Well, I've said my comments before. I'm, like I said, the whole time I was campaigning, I was getting people ask me why we're getting closer and closer with houses. So I voted against this measurement at the last council meeting, so I'm going to be consistent.
Madame Tremblay?
I'm not quite sure it's gonna reassure Madame Saucy, but it was 1 meter before, and we pushed it to 1.2. We're the only municipality in the counties of Prescott Russell that has a 1.2 setback for lateral. It's all 1 meter. So we've went further than what it was before. So the old zoning was 1 meter, and we've pushed it to 1.2.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Next item will be item K, calendar budget meetings, report FS 39 2018. The council receives report FS 39 2018 dated November 5th and adopts the 2019 budget meeting as proposed in Schedule A. I mentioned that some dates, you know, the week of the 3rd to the 7th or the week of the 17th to the 21st. I mean, I'm not sure if councilors have suggestions or Councillor Associé?
Well, I'm just, December 5th would work, and I think it works for all of us.
Councillor Lorraine on the Wednesday?
Is that the Wednesday or is that the?
The Wednesday, the 5th.
Sorry, I thought it was a Tuesday. Let me just make sure. I don't think there's a problem.
Not that I'm ignoring you, Councillor Pohl, but you won't be here, so.
No, we can ignore him. Yeah, I don't have anything on the calendar right now.
Okay, so we will amend it to indicate the public budget session will be on December 5th. So on peut faire le changement dans le bylaw. Il n'y a pas de trouble, Madame Cameron-Laflamme? For the public budget session?
Mr. Mayor, it's just, okay, if it's only for 1 year, then it's not for all meetings?
No.
Okay.
Just for this year.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain?
Can I just ask that we get if approved in a few moments, that we get a calendar request tomorrow on it so that it blocks the time in the calendars? Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you very much. I get Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, so I'll just state the comment again, and I'll come back to council and to staff next meeting on the budget sessions timeframe. We can approve the 6th and 7th tonight, along with the 5th of December. It's just, again, I may have a conflict with a conference where I would actually miss the entire week, which includes the council meeting. So, and it's the same one that I've missed for the last 8 years. So it's not something new that pops up every year. I'm hoping I don't have to go this year, but
Okay.
it may be forced upon me. So I'll talk to my boss and make sure that we're all good for that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Monsieur Leduc?
Monsieur le maire, votre conseil, je sais que le conseiller Brisson nous avait questionné par rapport à cette semaine de travail-là. Puis lui avait des plans de vacances qu'il avait annulés pour se libérer pour le 6-7. Donc, je ne sais pas où c'est rendu où, ses plans de vacances à lui aussi. Mais peut-être on va devoir le contacter pour
Ben,
pour
conseiller
le
Lorrain,
6-7. Là, puis on peut faire ça une autre fois. Là.
conseiller Lorrain, au prochain meeting, va être capable de nous confirmer s'il faut faire un changement ou non, espérant.
Je vais aviser M. Brisson aussi.
OK. Puis qui vérifie pour cette semaine-là.
Yeah.
OK. Perfect. So we need an amendment to change the date. J'ai-tu fait cette partie-là encore? Non? As-tu besoin d'un amendement ou juste une direction?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't get a mover seconder for the main one either.
Oh, the main one, sorry. Moved by conseiller Lorrain, seconded by conseiller Associé. To make an amendment to change to December 5th, c'est ça qu'est-ce qu'on a dit?
So December 10th to December 5th.
5th. Moved by conseiller Lorrain, seconded by councillor Paul. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? Yeah, thanks. I'll give you my wife here, the phone number. Now, to vote on it as amended, as amended, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. That was item K. We are now going to item P, the Forest Road Water Servicing Bylaw. I need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Councillor Saucier, seconded by Councillor Pohl. Questions, comments? Councillor Lorrain.
I think there's an associated bylaw with this, isn't there?
That is correct.
So I think I would like the bylaw taken out as well, to deal with separately. I think that bylaw and then I can't vote on that, on the resolution, the bylaw tonight, based on the fact that we just got that information, and I don't believe that last item should be an option. And, you know, with the communication piece with the residents, I think needs to come first before council votes on financing options, so I'm not prepared to vote on that item tonight.
Okay. Councillor Saucier?
I agree with Councillor Lorrain on that one, so I'm not prepared to vote on it.
Okay. So we have the option of either deferring this to another meeting or simply doing a first reading this evening. Which would you prefer?
Well, we're in the middle of the resolutions, right? So we're not in the bylaw right now.
No.
so-
No, at this point in time, if we want to defer the matter, then that automatically defers the bylaw. Monsieur Leduc?
Will there be a council direction regarding what's next?
Yes.
Because defer or delay doesn't change anything. But if we're given direction for something, we will need to know what's the direction you're looking at.
Correct. So let's talk about what direction council wants to give, and then we can move on with the next step. So, Councillor Saucier?
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody has received the updated letter and that all the residents are aware of this process that's, in the proposed changes. And then, so I would say defer.
So I'll make a recommendation. We're talking about a total of what? 29,000? No, I mean the total. 24,000. So I'm prepared to waive the interest on the amount of those connecting. So whatever the cost is, the 2,600 or the 2,900, if they connect in 10 years from now, that's still the two amounts. you know. And what was the third option? The third option put the percentage in. The first option was,
First option is to pay outright.
right,
The second option was to pay over 3 years.
over 3 years.
And the third option was to pay in full upon connection, and with the note that interest would be charged annually at the same rate as option 2.
Okay.
Uh,
So what I suggest is option 1, pay in full, if somebody wants to do it. Option 2, 3 years, 0% interest, and that's and then if they decide they want to pay it at a later date.
Sorry.
Monsieur Leduc?
I think we're not clear, Mr. Mayor. On every project we finance, we charge an interest rate. There's no zeros. I think the only option with zeros is the third option, which is to say, no, don't charge any interest if you don't connect now. But everything we finance, we have interest rates, we have interest costs.
Right.
So therefore, we charge those. So that's why option 2 is for somebody who right now decides to go and connects.
Right.
Then he has the option to, or he or she has the option to pay by November 30th, or take the option of 3 years to pay. That's why there's got to be an interest rate there. But to your third point, where if somebody wants to only connect in 5 years from now, and you decide not to charge an interest rate from now to the meantime he connects, that's something else.
Right.
You could go there, but you went to option 2 saying no interest rate there, but I
Well-
think we charge everybody an interest rate, and I think we finance. So if that changes tonight, that's a precedent for everything we do on many files we do.
Well, I think the reason I was saying there was such a low amount of 2,400, you know, council could waive that if it so choose, but I'm fine. As long, option 3, which was never considered or never mentioned to the residents, I think that's a big one that we have to take care of. That if they don't connect, they don't pay an interest, they'll pay the fee that is established down the road. Councillor Larin?
Well, what this doesn't take into account is that future connection, right? Because it says either option 1 is you connect now and pay in full by the end of the month, or 2, I'm still assuming it says connect now and you pay over 3 years at a 3.54%. But nowhere there does it say connect later, what your options for repayment are, right? Other than pay in full when you connect later and be charged back interest.
Right.
At this point in time, the third option is upon connection, which means it could be down the road at any time. It could be 15 years from now or 15 months from now. It doesn't mean that now.
But they're not giving an option on if they connect later,
Yep.
what their options are. It's pay in full, I'm assuming. At that point in time, if they connect later on, they don't get a 3-year window to repay.
Again, that's something I said earlier about financing. We're to a point where we're about to stop financing at one point. But certainly option 3, you could say no interest rates, that's fine. But you could still add an extra option plan if you want to put an option plan of paying if you want to. We're suggesting not to, because we don't know what's going to be like in 6 months or 6 years or 16 years from today regarding these connections. So that's why we're saying, then when they connect, upon their connection, whenever they do decide to go, then they should be paying in full.
Well,
With no interest if you proceed that way.
I think there needs to be an option 3 and an option 4, if that's the case. Your option 3 is connect in the future and pay in full within 30 days, right? Which is what you're giving here. Pay in full within 30 days at no interest. And option 4 is you will get from the time of connection a 3-year repayment plan at the interest rates of the time at that point in time, but no back interest to today.
Yep.
I think that satisfies the situation. And if we're prepared to go there, then I'm prepared to vote on that tonight. If that makes sense.
Yep.
I just don't, it's the back interest, I think that's causing the issue. And then no additional option in the future to have a payment plan on it. The only thing we won't know is what that interest rate will be at that time, and that we can't determine today. Right? Because it could be 5 years from now, it could be 20 years from now. Interest rates are gonna be all over the map by then, potentially. So I think we say interest rates, you know, a 3-year financing plan, interest rates to be determined by the council of the day, or whatever. how
I
it's
think,
written.
like I mentioned earlier, we have to be specific that they're not being charged the 2011-55 rate. But I just want to make sure that, you know, from a resident standpoint, if council decides to go down the road of putting a capital charges bylaw in place, I don't think we have the ability to waive future charges in a bylaw.
Well, we just did it a few minutes ago for somebody else.
Future charges?
We just did that for Mr. Bray.
We waive something that's in place. So what we're doing with 2011-55.
But at the time that he signed, it wasn't in place.
No, but it's in place now. We decided not to charge him, right?
We're splitting atoms.
No, but can you say that 6 years down the road, a council says, we will not charge these residents on a bylaw that's put in place by 2 councils down the road? You can't put a bylaw in place. You can't waive a future bylaw.
No, but what you can say is that there will be no additional connection charges that will be imposed to that project, regardless of bylaws of the day, because you're exempting that now.
So if, that's what I'm saying, if we can't vote on that tonight because we have to make sure it's worded properly.
Right.
You know, on the other items, I'm fine with, as you mentioned, but it's the portion of, in the report, we specify that 2011-55 is not being charged, but we have to be able to specify if we're doing something else in the future. Councillor Saucier?
So again, I reiterate my point that the residents need to be updated on this and all the different options, and because that could determine whether they hook up or they don't.
Right,
And
because.
so we have to be clear that they are all aware of any changes. Like, this change was made tonight, there's probably a lot of residents have no idea about this.
Yeah.
So before I will vote on it, I want to make sure that they get an update on the different options.
Yeah. I don't know if we've made that clear, Monsieur Lizard?
Well, what's clear to me is that this 2011-55 has to be mentioned that they're not being charged in the bylaw.
Correct.
That's an addition to be made there. There's an option 4 to be included. That's true also. There's a letter to be sent to those residents regarding those coming changes before council votes on this finally. But the last point is, when I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that we should have something in writing that says, well, if they wait later to connect, and a future council could impose future connection fees. Now, we waived the 2011-55, it's existing, you're now able to do that, if you chose to do that. But to say in the future you're waiving everything, I think, I also agree with you that, you know, we can't protect for 20 years coming, so.
Hold on.
Councillor Ray?
What we're calling the capital charges bylaw, right, which is what we're talking about, could affect this project as well, correct?
Yep.
That bylaw does have a number because we've already passed first reading on it. Do we not?
First reading.
Then why don't we include that number as well?
Monsieur Leduc?
So let's say council votes down this one, and future council can look with another number in 2025. So the number will be repealed, but there's a new number coming in, and therefore there's a new bylaw being adopted. So there's gonna have to be something specifically mentioned about that.
Because my opinion is, because we know that there's this bylaw out there right now, that we name the 2011 and the 2018 bylaws that affect capital charges.
So the suggestion I would make then is when we have the discussion about the new bylaw, and if council goes into the direction that it wants to waive those fees on certain projects, then at that point in time, we can state in that existing bylaw as approved that it will not apply to the following projects if that's the will of council. Councillor Poole?
I was going to suggest two options on top of that one. I mean, you're only giving 3 years. Is it something you can give more time so that they're actually paying?
$2,900. It's a $2,900 charge.
I know, but
Over
in some
3
cases,
years.
it might be enough that if you're charging $400 a year as a capital charge for the next 7 years, or whatever it takes to get there, that be imposed as a capital charge. Therefore, you know they're paying the charge whenever they connect, but at least pay down the charge over the time frame, and you have a record of it being paid down. So at least you're getting some revenue to offset your interest charges. You maybe have a $400 a year charge for those until it's paid off.
Monsieur Leduc?
So nobody, except one person right now, has expressed an interest in connecting, so it's not an issue. Like, nobody wants to connect right now. And like any other resident in this township who's not connected right now, if whenever they decide to connect, if they choose to connect, and we're not forcing nobody at this point, whatever fee is in place, like any other residents would have to pay the connection fee. So if council passes a new bylaw in 219, 2025, whoever connects has that fee to be paid. So right now, they have no interest in connecting. Nobody's forcing them. There's nothing to pay.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, if you will, if a resident decided to pay this fee now and still not connect, at least it's paid, and that would avoid any future charge. Is that possible? They've paid their connection, they pay for the fee that's in place at the time, and then, or is it they have to pay the connection fee, like they pay the $300 for the meter and that kind of stuff? Just trying to think outside the box here and look at different scenarios. Mr. Godin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Wait.
So just to clarify, the other bylaw that we brought back in June, the conversion bylaw, if you want to call it that, the way it's structured is that you're going to pay that fee when you apply for connection, right? So, I mean, the two bylaws aren't really related, so I understand what you're trying to say, but the way it's worded now, and it might be changed, but the way it's worded now is when they come in to do the application for the connection permit, that's where they're going to be charged that.
It's not when they pay this fee.
Exactly.
Just so I think there's some changes that have to come forward in this report. Monsieur Godin?
And just something to consider, I guess, and to mention, when we do bring back that other bylaw and research that we've been doing, council will have to make decisions about when to start, right? Because there's different projects at different stages. I mean, we have some that we've just maybe just met the property owners, like Tamad Den.
Mhm.
There's more that we're looking to meet some soon. And there's more, like there's this one here where we're at the point where we're putting together a new bylaw. So I think when we do bring back the information, we're gonna have a list of projects too, which we'll have to determine, are they applicable or not? Like, what's the starting point?
Yeah, and like one of the residents said when we had the meeting, a sunset clause, put this in effect, everybody's got 5 years to do it, and after 5 years, then you pay that fee or whatever. There's different options that residents were looking at and that staff are looking at. I don't want to blindside anybody saying, yes, we're waiving this 2011-55 fee, and then all of a sudden, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the road, a bylaw's in place and that we didn't know about it. I just want to make sure that everybody's, So when that letter, if you will, is sent to residents, it should be clear that, this fee is being waived, but not necessarily any future fee that a future council decides to put into place. Monsieur Leduc?
Now, is the letter before council votes on this, or is the letter a solicitation for comments?
I would like the letter first. Before I would vote, I want the residents to be aware of what any changes. And, yes.
Councilor Daudet?
I agree. I mean, the biggest thing for me is communication, right? And is if the people have the information, in front of them to say, here are all your potential charges for this cost, right? You've got your lateral payment you got to pay for. This is what the connection fee is if you want to connect now. Here's your term to repay all this stuff. Here's all of the information. Now make a decision what you want to do with it. You want to not do it or you want to do it. To come to a meeting tonight and have another option thrown out, I think doesn't do any good, right? We kind of defeat the purpose of having had a previous letter out to them or a previous discussion to then all of a sudden come back with, well, if you don't do it now, then you got to pay a back charge. And then, oh, by the way, there's a 2011 bylaw that you could be potentially have to pay. And then there's potentially another one that's in the works right now that you could have to pay. I mean, I think if people knew up front exactly what everything was, and we laid it all out for them, it makes a heck of a lot more sense and a lot easier to justify when we sit up here and make decisions on this, right?
Monsieur Leduc?
The addition was made, Mr. Mayor, from discussions we had from phone calls this today. Because before today's amendment, they were forced to connect. And today's amendment is to allow them not to connect upon the request and upon our previous correspondence we had issued to them. So we agree with that. We have no issues with that. And at this point, none of the other resident homeowners want to connect neither. So to them to have more information regarding what are the connection fees and this and that, they don't want to connect. So how will me sending a letter to them before help council decide what will be the fee or not when they don't want to connect and it doesn't apply to them? They'll say, just pass whatever bylaw, we're not going to be connecting anyway, so it doesn't change anything. So that's why I'm asking the question, is the letter needed before you make a decision, or the letter after when you made a decision to confirm to them if ever you ever choose to connect, because now we offer them not to connect. If ever you choose to connect, then for these will be the fees. So that's why I need to know which letter you want me to send. A consulting letter before, or a notice of the decision of council after.
I think at this point in time, council is not ready to make a decision, so the second letter, so it'll be a letter stating that these are the four possible options we looked at, confirming in the letter that 2011-55 will not be charged. Am I correct for that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the choices being presented to council.
And then are they expected to respond of their response, or is it just an information letter?
I think it's an information letter, and if residents receive the information letter, make sure to put the contact information of the administration and council members. And if the residents wish to call us to speak to that letter, then they're more than welcome to do so. Councillor Pohl?
I think one cautionary note in that letter is that through changes in councils in 4 years, you may have a new charge. That things could potentially charge or new charges be added that don't exist today in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
You basically have the same council, so I'm assuming for the next 4 years you're safe. After 4 years, you get a new council, you can't guarantee what the new council says, yes, no, or maybe you didn't connect now.
Yeah.
We're gonna start charging you because we need the revenue.
Well, that's it. The bylaw that we will pass will be essentially, unless things change, will be the four options. The fact that council is waiving 2011-55, and that we cannot guarantee additional charges might not be added by future council decisions. So if members on Forest Road decide to connect right away, these are the options. Somebody waits to 5, 10, 20 years down the road, well, there might be additional things that will be implicated in that case in time. We're good with that? Send the information letter, and if residents have questions, they can contact the administration and come back to,
Or council.
or council, definitely. So we'll just defer the recommendation to, c'est quand que tu aimerais, premier meeting en décembre? Right, it gives you a month. That gives a week or two to get the letter out, and the residents have a couple weeks to get back to council members and administration. So the first meeting in December will be December 3rd.
3rd of December.
Oh, make a fun night for the new guy. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder to defer this item. Moved by Councillor Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Saucier. All those in favor to defer till the December meeting? All those opposed? Carried. So this item. So, just to clarify, so this will be coming back at the, you guys will all get a letter, and then if you have questions or comments in the letter, contact us or the administration, and we'll be discussing it again at the December meeting. You're welcome. Okay, that was item P. Now off to item V. The Traffic Calming Policy Report ISPW 14-2018. I need a mover and seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Poole, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. Questions, comments? Councillor Lorrain.
I asked to pull it out because I had a comment that I wanted to ask, and I believe when we do the consent items, we can't ask the questions. So
Correct.
I have a question for Monsieur Leduc or Monsieur Bourgon. In terms of Route 400, as we're coming up to that stop sign, I understand the sign is the county's sign, the stop sign. The pavement leading up to the intersection, is that ours or the county's?
Mr. Mayor, it's ours.
So can we put stop, or can we put lines coming to a stop? I've seen that in other areas where you've got a line, then it becomes a solid, so you know that you have to stop, and where it says stop on it or something to that effect. Is that something that we are allowed to do?
Mr. Bourgon?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Laurent, yes, we're allowed to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Question in that regards, maybe Chief, you have more experience at that intersection. Is the problem people not knowing that it's a stop? Or is the problem people thinking it's just a four-way stop? She thought it was a four-way stop. Okay. So it's not stopping the issue, it's taken off at the right time, right? Okay. Perfect. All right. So we have it on the table. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 15, bylaws. So, il y en a un qui est sorti, c'est ça?
Mr. Mayor, there would be number 150 and number 152 that you deferred.
152 is deferred, yeah.
Or we can just put the note that it was deferred at number 11.
Ouais, ben
Like
c'est
you-
ça. C'est automatiquement, c'est plus inclus parce qu'on l'a deferré, c'est ça?
Okay, well, maybe it's, that's it. So maybe it's better just separate, so this way we have that.
So 150,
And 152.
okay. So let's put it on the table. Motion that council approves bylaws 2018-142 to 2018-158 inclusively for first, second, third reading as listed on the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder to put on table. Councilor Lorrain, Councilor Paul. Now we add the amendment except for item 150 and 152. I need a mover and seconder for that amendment. Moved by Councilor Paul, second, Councilor Lorrain. All those in favor as amended? All those opposed? Carried. So now, item 150 being the calendar. Need a mover and seconder put on table. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Saucier. All those in favor of 150? All those opposed? Carried. And 152, we just make a note that it was deferred. Okay, perfect. We got that done. Item 16, new business reports, we have none. Item 17, other business. Councillor Saucier, emergency response plan.
Okay, this is kind of a two-part question, and the first one, I know we've discussed at the Environment Committee, Mr. Bourgon, about the climate change plan, and with the changing weather and the extreme weather that we're getting, what the question that came to me was for our emergency response plan was in the last tornado. A lot of people that were affected in the area felt that they weren't contacted. You know, they sort of felt like somebody should have been knocking at their door to see if they were okay. Especially on South Russell Road, some of the residents experienced quite extreme damage. And, you know, cars crushed and different things like this, sheds lifted and put in another place in the yard. And you're kind of out there as well. So they just said, you know, it would have been nice if somebody had just sort of checked to make sure all the residents were okay. So I'm just wondering, you know, when we experience extreme weather like this, do we have something in place or in plan to address that, you know, almost like the ice storm, you know, like it was for those people that were affected, they said it was that traumatic. And so I just said I would bring the question.
Thank you very much. Not sure who wants to take this one, Monsieur Leduc. I know in the example of the ice storm, the recent one, when the power lines went down on St. Andre, the fire department had their, for lack of a term, four-wheeler that, you know, everybody jumped on and they went from house to house. I think that was a little bit more extreme. I don't know, in the case of the tornado, I don't know if we were called to deal with any of that from... How do we know there's an issue? Okay, Monsieur Leduc?
I would probably put that into a different step, whereas do we have a declared, emergency declared or not? I think if it is declared, then we'll have all the resources and everything ready to go and take care of these individuals wherever they are. So that's a different issue, is whenever you say there's a tough storm comes through, but do we send out people to watch? Well, we don't do that right now because it's not part of our emergency issue. I don't think it is. Now, if it's a daytime, we have staff that probably maybe was going to say, have a look around. Maybe the firefighters will say, conduct driving around, or even public works workers are driving around in the daytime. If it's nighttime, if it's weekend, I guess it's a different thing. If it's not a declared emergency, that's what I think. Maybe Emily has something else to
Madame
add.
Bourdeau?
In any storm, staff goes around and checks, make sure that the roads are clear, be it roads, recreation, firefighters, OPP. We all participate, we all work together, and we try to see if there's any evident damage, and if there's people that are in distress, of course, we will assist them. But if people, like Chief Armstrong said, if people don't call, it's not evident to see that a shed has moved when you drive by, unless the people tell you this is where it is and now it's over there. As you drive by, you might not realize that. The things you realize is if there's trees down, if there's power lines down, if there's, you know, this type of damage. We won't necessarily go door to door, because it's most of the time people don't need us. They just want us to clear the trees out of the street. But we do assist. A lot of times we go around, we make sure people are okay, but we don't start calling people, because who do we call? And it gets to be, it's up to the people to call us. And we have emergency numbers 24 hours a day, and we have 911 if it's an emergency of that type.
I guess it was just that stretch. There was like 7 residents all hit, and people lost their roofs, some lost their kitchen, and it was quite severe. In that shed, it was quite obvious because it was like a steel dome shed, and it was mangled like a can opener had gone to it. So it was, you know, it was quite evident that there was something quite serious. But it was all the way down like the Jacksons, and they were saying like their entire forest was even decimated. Their woodlot on their property, so they just said they were really in the basement, very scared, and they just wondered what our contingency plan was, and especially if we start experiencing more often. But I will mention to them that they should make the phone call.
We do have a risk assessment,
Mhm.
and natural disasters is part of the risk assessment.
Okay.
So we try to prepare for all events, but we can't prepare to,
Mm-hmm,
there's a limit to what we can prepare for,
right.
so. But
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ray?
Yeah, I don't know if we wanted to mention the heritage study that's happening, I believe, tomorrow, Wednesday night.
Item B. Yep. Madame Tremblay?
So thanks, it's the second public meeting for the Heritage District that would be held here at the Township of Russell in the Salle Gaston Patenaude at 7. And it's going to be through the consultant to look at the proposed Heritage District.
Okay. Est-ce que le monde dans le passé qui avait des commentaires and that stuff, have they been notified by email? We have their contact information that we're having a follow-up.
Yeah, so for the first public meeting, we had a list of people that wanted to be contacted personally, so they were invited by email personally to be invited to the second one.
Okay.
And for the second public meeting, we had posted on the arena board and in all of the businesses in Russell, we put it the form for the invitation.
Perfect.
Can we get a copy of of whatever is going to be displayed afterwards?
Yeah, it's going to be put up, so on our Facebook, it was announced, as well as on the webpage of the Township of Russell, we have a page just for heritage. So the first public meeting was posted, the presentation. The second public presentation will be posted on November 8th.
Okay.
And there's also a questionnaire and a survey that will be also available after the presentation on November 8th on the heritage page of the Township website.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Move on, item 18, public meetings, hearings. We have none. Item 19, closed session pursuant to section 239, 2, 3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Motion to move into a closed meeting at the hour of 9:11 p.m. to address matters pertaining to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, consider matters relating to 1, proposed acquisition of land in Emblem, Section 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 2, follow-up on notice of appeal, retail business holiday exemption bylaw 2018-093, under Section 2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Moved by Councillor Paul, seconded by Councillor Saucier. All in favor? All opposed? We're now in closed session.